What's going on, everybody? Cybernox here, and today we're going to be talking about a little game called The Last of Us 2. We're going to be spoiling the game, so if you have not played it, or if you do not want to be spoiled on the game, please bookmark this page and come back after. But to do that, to help me talk about this game, because you have to bounce some ideas off each other, I have two members of the community, two elite members of the community here. First and foremost, we have Cotton here, a friend of mine that I met through Primetime Gaming Podcasting. Cotton, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Quite the intro. I'm not quite as elite as Ains over here or yourself, but I
hey
appreciate you having
man,
me on.
absolutely. We're all elites here. What are you talking about?
There we go. There we go.
And
Appreciate that.
also, I have, are you the editor in chief, Aids?
Yeah, I'm the
The
head.
the
Yeah.
head of Season Gaming, one of the best websites you'll find out there. I love his slogan, journalism with integrity. Ains, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
This live stream looks good, man.
Looks good, man. I'm
Yeah.
telling you guys right now, I was extremely nervous. It's my first time doing this. So audience, please, be gentle. Be gentle on the comments. But yeah, so we are gonna be spoiling The Last of Us 2. It's a very divisive game. Not a divisive game, but it definitely it's has definitely gotten divisive reaction from the fan base. It's been absolutely loved by the critics, but right now it sits at a 5.0 on Metacritic. So to do that, I broke down this format in three different categories. We're gonna start with graphics, then gameplay, then story. Just to get a sense of scale here, or see where everybody thinks. Did either one of you two play the first Last of Us?
Yeah, I played it through back in high school, a while right when it came out, pretty much, and
Okay.
then I just played through the remastered no, like a few weeks ago, on right before the part two came out to get a refresh.
Yeah. How about you, Lanes?
Yeah. So I'm an old guy. So I played it back in 2013 when it came out. Played it twice actually on PS3. I've played the remaster almost all the way through twice as well. So nearly four times the original. One of my favorite games of all time. So yeah.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Where do you guys hold The Last of Us, the original, in regards to, um, you know, in your scale? Where do you guys hold that game? I personally played The Last of Us as well back in the PS3 area, and I played the remastered. I think to me that's probably um one of the best stories ever told. Like, and I hold that game in very high regards. Like, to me, that game was a 10 out of 10. Not necessarily technically, but for everything it did correct in regards to the story, the way you connected that whole world. To me, that game was perfect. How about you guys?
Yeah. I sorry, God,
Sorry.
go ahead, man.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm a little more fresh on it back because I'm a bit younger, obviously, but I didn't own the game back originally on the PS3, so I didn't even have a PS3. I've been Xbox for a long time, but I played it at some friend's house. They're just having literally like everyone gathered around to watch my homeboy play, and I played for a little while because they didn't want to play with the clickers. So, but
Yeah.
no, it immediately sucked me in, and the story, like you said, like that was enough for me to be like, okay, I'm missing out on some PlayStation. Like I'm starting to realize what everyone's talking about. That was the first game. I was like, okay, maybe I need to get a PS4 when it comes out. So, and I played through the remaster originally, like I said, a few weeks ago, and it really grabbed me a lot more this time playing it all the way through. I did it in just one sitting, did it about 12 hours, and just that's just the way I digest stories better. And it's, yeah, like you said, it's up there for sure. It's my favorite PlayStation game, undoubtedly, and
Yeah.
one of the best single player experiences I've ever gone through.
Yeah, me too. How about you, Ains?
Yeah. So so you said it pretty well. Technically speaking, there's things you can point to fault in the original Last of Us, in my opinion. But I would still, it's one of the very few games I would give a 10 because it redefined character development and storytelling in video games for me.
Mm-hmm.
Being a father too, I mean, I have 4 kids, been through a lot with my kids, and just the story of Joel and Ellie, like I said, this game means an awful lot to me, the original.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's way up there. It's in my top 5 of all time, along with a few others, but it's definitely one of my favorites. So I had been anticipating part 2 for a long, long time.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. Everything you just said just resides with me as well. You know, I'm a father now. I became a father last year, end of last year. I had to think about it for a little bit. Yeah. So
Congrats, by the way.
even when I go back and I play and I see some of those cutscenes, oh man, it just hits you. You know what I mean? Hey Tempest, what's going on? But hope you're able to join us. Okay, so I will say this: reviewers have definitely a hard time. I have no idea how some reviewers review the game. I was just talking to you, Ains, because you review the game as well. Behind this, and we're talking about The Last of Us 2 now. Behind the scene, how they review the games without spoiling anything. I think it was extremely difficult task, but you know, a lot of them did it. And yeah, if you Ains also did a review on the game, The Last of Us Part 2. If you guys should definitely go check it out at Season Gaming. Is it .net or .com, Ains?
.com.
Yeah. So all right, gents, without further ado, let's start talking about The Last of Us. Let's start with let me throw a softball up there. Let's talk about graphics. Ains, I'll start with you. What do you think about the graphics of this game?
Yeah, so playing so for context, right? Playing on the Pro, playing on OLED, and very, very strong. I think some of the scenes and some of the artistic direction, especially once you get to Seattle and those things, are just gorgeous. I would say one of the best looking games of the generation. In particular, I'll call out cutscenes, right? So the cinematics, the way they're choreographed, things like demonstrating human emotion right through the eyes, and just the way people look is really, really well done. It's not easy to do. It's definitely top tier, and it makes you, similar to the first one when it first released, right? It makes you identify with the characters as if they're real. I don't even want to bring up like games like Mass Effect Andromeda, right, which got crucified for.
Oh my god, yeah.
You know, like the facial animations and stuff. But there's a reason, right? Because when they're not done well, it takes you out of the game. They're not believable characters. Yeah. And this is just the opposite. They're so well done that it's just incredibly impressive. So, yeah, I think I won't say. I still think there's areas like Red Dead 2 for me is still top tier.
Oh yeah.
Top tier.
Yeah, I mean, bar none. There's just areas of that game which I can't even fathom how they pulled that off. But for this, there are areas that look close to that. There are some areas at times where it felt to me like you could see where the long development cycle came into play, right? Like some textures that didn't look so great. But I think at times that's really being nitpicky. I think overall, it's a beautiful, beautiful game, really well done, and just bravo to whoever, you know, or the teams that were involved in the cinematics and motion cap and all those things, because it's incredible.
Oh yeah. How about you, Khan? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you're saying, the facial animations, it totally removes that disconnect that you have with a bunch of other games. Like, it's spot on, dude. From the faces that Ellie is making, like when she's just coming up behind somebody and just stabbing them in the neck or the side, like, and she's like holding their mouth, and like you see all of it. Like you feel it. The animations are beyond some of the best I've ever seen, for sure. And the only game I can think about when I'm trying to compare this to is Red Dead 2. And that says something, because Red Dead 2 is, like you said, that's bar none. Like, that is the best I've seen. And I'm playing on the Pro as well, and I'm playing on the OLED. And it looks, I mean, those scenes where you're going through all the foliage, the grass, the way the grass just moves when you're prone. It's a beautiful game. It's definitely the best graphics I'd seen. It's before that I was really blown away with God of War, but this I didn't think that the Pro was able to get much better, and then it did. Like, it looked phenomenal, man, honestly.
Yeah, I might be the only one playing on a PS4 day one edition because yeah. Even so, the graphics looked amazing. I'm not playing on a pro. I never picked up a pro, but the graphics still looked amazing, and it's kind of like what you know what everything you guys just mentioned. I agree with 100%. I think this game slightly just loses to Red Dead. I think being a linear game, it can do a lot more. It can push graphics a little bit more.
Yeah,
Um, and like Cotton mentioned, the foliage was amazing, like the water amazing, snow amazing, even on my regular PS4. you know I will say that there were times that I had like a little bit of stutter. Now that could be because of the hardware. You guys were playing on the pro, I was playing on the original. But just that the attention to detail that this game had as well, like in the beginning scene when you're playing as Joel and you finish talking to Tommy and you take your horse, and then like you go and it was something so little, he pulls up the garage door and like you see dust moving out into the open
yeah,
air. They duck under the garage door. I was like, okay.
Mhm.
And then when he comes across the street on that curve and then the sunlight hits, he puts his hand up, like, oh my god, it's so bright. And then you go through that hayfield. That was like, oh my god. Like that scene, I was like, yes, like The Last of Us is back. It's on the screen right now, so you guys will see it in a little bit.
Yeah, and
I was
some of
like,
the
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Ains.
no, to that, I was just gonna kind of add to that point. One of the things that really stood out to me at times in this game is the lighting engine.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different environments that you find yourself in this game, which we'll touch on. But the lighting at times, especially on, you just mentioned like the snow level early on, and like you're seeing on the screen right here as you're riding back into Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. The lighting and the way it reflected off of buildings and characters and just things around the environment was so realistically done at times. I found myself kind of stopping and going into photo mode, more often than not, just because it's really impressive. I've been playing games a very long time. I used to code. I just
Oh, nice.
I've been just done this a long, long time, and so
Right.
I always pick up on these kind of details. Not that others don't, of course, but I mean, it's just I'll stop and kind of reflect on what it must have taken for a development team to do some of these things. And there's just aspects of this game, like you said, kind of putting his hand up and blocking the sun, and animations, even like when you're like crawling and you're near a wall, right? Like Ellie
Mm-hmm.
will reach out or Abby will reach out and kind of brace herself against the wall and kind of put her arm up and move around the environment, those types of
The way
animations. So
the
just
grass moved too, man. When you're moving around the grass, it's like it's
yeah,
adapting to the way your body. I'm like, oh my god.
exactly. And different, like depending if you're going prone
Yeah.
or just what I mean. It just there's a lot of aspects like that you can just see. It's one of those games that's been put a lot of time and development into by the teams.
Yeah, it goes to say when you give a developer time, and to be fair, both Rockstar and Naughty Dog probably had an unlimited budget when it comes to both of
Time and
these
money,
games.
man.
Time and money.
Always
So
time and money.
they for sure did them proud. So I'm gonna mix another topic here too. What do you guys think about? I think this is a very underrated uh aspect of games that I feel like not a lot of reviewers talk about, and that's the music of the game, the score of the game. What do you guys think of the music of this game?
Go ahead, Con.
Oh, go ahead, Connor.
dude, it was absolutely.
I gotta get better at
phenomenal.
that. Sorry, guys. I gotta.
No, you're
No,
good.
it's fine.
Yeah, I don't want to talk over them. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. That set the mood and the tone for everything. Honestly, the music really kept me invested for what was going on at the moment. Even as the credits rolled, like it adds weight to like just you and your thought process of what's going on in the story. It was very, very well done. I was actually on Apple Music today and going through that album of the original soundtrack and just kind of picking apart which one stood out to me, and it was fantastic. Sound design is pretty underrated, like you said, and even with the guitar mini game that they had in there,
Yeah.
and so many cool things I've seen
Oh
people
my
do,
God.
like it's on point. It's completely on point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Santiala, the guy who basically composed the soundtrack for 1 and 2. And if you look up the soundtrack to 1 when it became kind of famous, he created this thread with this detuned guitar. And that's how he created a lot of those songs. And there's some really good kind of small documentaries and stuff, and even YouTube videos of him doing the songs for these games.
Yeah,
it's really, really cool. And
I watched the documentary on YouTube for the first one, and then when you go through his studio, it was pretty fascinating. The stuff that he was doing.
Yeah, and the guy, I mean, he speaks for himself, right? I'm not going to speak for him. Just go ahead, watch it, and you'll be impressed. But yes, it's really, really well done. You're probably going to hear me say that a lot tonight. But it complements the world extremely well. I think that's what made it stand out in Last of Us 1, especially the title theme, just Last of Us 1, as you're sitting there looking at that window, just blowing in the wind, and the guitar kicks in. It's very, very memorable. It's probably a good word.
Yeah, memorable is a great word.
I just think it adds the immersion, it
Sure.
gives you, when you were in the subway and you had that deep dark tone, and then that music is just pumping like like it just adds. You're like, oh shit, what's about
the tension build up was really well done in scenes
so
too.
Good. And then the scenes between him and Ellie and Joel was just like perfect. The way he just it was silence, and then you just hear the string of either the banjo or the guitar or whatever at that point was necessary. It was amazing, man. I think graphics, score, I think they did a really, really, really good job.
Yeah, music was phenomenal, especially whenever Ellie sit down with Dina inside the downtown Seattle area, and they get the guitar. Is that when they get it for the first time, or does she take it with her? But she starts playing Take on Me. Oh man. I was feeling that so much.
It's one of the best scenes of the game.
Straight up, that really, really just. That's a great song, but just the way it was delivered resonated, and it totally adds to immersion.
Yeah,
everything you said, I agree with. The tension buildup is amazing, especially in that last fight. You don't know what's about to happen.
No doubt. No doubt.
That last fight, the way you're just looking over your boat and you don't know what's gonna do, and then you just hear it in the background.
Yeah, it's especially right there. I was like, okay.
That's pretty wild. Okay, anything else you guys want to add in graphics or music score?
The only thing I'll call out, and I'm not trying to be negative, is that if you go and listen to the Last of Us 2 soundtrack, which is available on whatever service you listen to nowadays, if you listen to it, there's actually a lot more songs on there from a guitar perspective that you didn't really hear through the game. So I don't know. There's a lot of mood setting and tension building themes in the game. There's less of the guitar, I think, than the first game. So if you do like those things, definitely check out the full soundtrack, because there's some really good tracks that I think they could have used a little more in the game, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I definitely noticed that when I was looking through the soundtrack today. It's like, I don't know if this is quite familiar, but I like it. The dude is super talented.
Yeah, he's incredible.
A fun fact, I don't know if you mentioned the Saints, but if you see that documentary, he can't read or write music.
He does it all through sound.
He does it all through sound. I thought that was pretty fascinating. Very talented guy. Yeah. All right, so I think we can all agree this was just so we can start talking. So graphics and score, music, it looks like it's a big win for all three of us.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about gameplay. Ains, what did you think about gameplay?
Yeah, so this is probably where I'm going to be the most negative tonight. And when I say most negative, let me preface that by saying I'm not really going to be that negative. But when you focus on something and you have to really kind of review a game like this,
you really gotta you gotta pick something. There's gonna be little things that's gonna stand out that are not as perfect as other things. But go ahead.
Yeah, and no, you're fine. I just they evolved some things from part one. I think where part one was the weakest was some of the gameplay aspects. I get that given the situation that you're in and the sneaking around and how you want to, approach things, and the simplicity of things like shooting people with bows or, sneaking around. I get that. I find it to be relatively simplistic. I like that they added some more kind of ways to tackle situations.
I know you wish things were different.
In the sense of, there's animations around limbs targeting, right? Shoot people in the legs and they'll kind of stumble, and that'll give you a break in being able to hit them a different way. And there's more weapons here, and there's more ways to approach situations because you can go prone and run and jump. And so I like that they did all those things, but I still find it that it's not, I play a ton, I don't know about you guys, but I play a ton of kind of competitive shooters and stuff.
Oh, I
right?
love it too. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Cotton knows it too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think
I
I won
love
my
it.
first. Not to get off whole topic here, but my first quad win on Warzone was with Cotton, so we're good.
Nice. Okay. All right. So,
I'm leaving tomorrow.
it's not the focus for The Last of Us, and it shouldn't be. I'm not saying that, right? But when you're used to
This
playing
smart.
games that are so fluid
You're leaving Jackson
and
vulnerable.
gunplay and things like that,
So they
this
just
feels
get to
a
get
little
away with
clunky
this?
to me. And so I struggle a little bit. I also
you
feel like
find
their
us?
aiming system, whether it's this game or Uncharted, isn't as polished
You
as
can't
other
stop
games.
this.
That's more of a Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I struggle with that a little bit. And then the most negative thing I had, and I put this in my review, was the AI. Your companion AI, while I love Naughty Dog's really good at like banter and conversational stuff. We already talked about the cinematics, how good they were. But just like when you're in a tense situation, like the worst one I had, and I have clips of this, is when I was in the subway with the clickers and the other group, like all at once.
Yes.
So I'm in cover, right? And Dina was just running into me. I got pushed out of cover twice by her and killed by the clickers while I'm trying to hide. And it's like, I don't know why they programmed your companions to basically try to be like on top of you.
Yeah.
Like they were always in
We could
my
have
way,
killed you.
and I was getting so frustrated at one point. Like
Maybe you
you
should
have
have.
these bigger environments in this game than part one, and you'd have this big open area to combat in, and yet my AI companion is
I'm
literally
Neil
trying to
Druckmann,
cover,
Vice
stand
President
like on
of
top
Naughty
of me.
Dog
I'm
and the
like,
director
this is
of
just
The
driving
Last
me
of Us
nuts.
Part 2.
So
We're just
from
a
a
few weeks
gameplay
away
perspective,
from
I
launch,
wasn't
on June
really
19th,
enthralled.
when the game will finally
I think
be
it's
in
the
your
weakest
hands.
part of
The wait has been long,
of the
and
overall
we're extremely
package of
grateful
Last
for
of
your
Us and Last
patience,
of Us 2.
especially now.
But
in the
at the same time, it's not something to where I think it was so bad or horrible, anything of that nature, where it completely detracts from the experience.
Yeah. How about you, Cotton?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, especially when I was playing through the first one recently, just on Last of Us Part 1, or just The Last of Us, I guess. It was just bothered me how unpolished it was. So when I was jumping into Part 2, the fact that, they added a few elements, right? Like the prone and the jumping and even the dive to prone kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're sprinting, which that was a cool part of it. And, like you said, shooting off the limbs and like the animations that go along with that, very satisfying. But something about because it's a similar aim style to me as, not to bring back Red Dead 2, but it's like that style of shooting where it's not your typical shooter, like you were saying, like that I'm used to.
Yeah.
But it almost felt like for sake of tension, like it wants you to miss almost that shaky until you upgrade your weapons. Like it's just like
yeah, I can see that.
it's
Create
kind
more
of
tension
shaky
between
on
you and the
purpose to give you
firefights,
I just missed like my second shot and I only have limited resources or whatever. So that was a little bit of a gripe. It was more polished for sure than the original one, but I mean, not quite enough for me to really I don't know. It felt more the same, like overall,
Yeah.
besides the
Yeah.
few like added elements. As far as even to go with like the way the upgrade bench, stuff like that. Like in the first game, like as you get new weapons, they all go into that upgrade bench.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that was not the case with this one. Like you would get, you couldn't upgrade every single weapon on that bench. I don't know. I was like, just the way that when you find like the crafting parts and you're getting the supplements, like all of that was like the exact same from the first game. So I wanted a bit more innovation
Yeah, me too.
honestly, because they had so much time. They really felt like the main thing that I enjoyed the most that they implemented with this part 2 in the gameplay was just how satisfying it was whenever you did get like a close quarters kill or you did blow
Right.
someone's limb off, or like it was very satisfying when you pulled off some things, but it wasn't too many new elements. So I don't know, I liked it. It was
Yeah.
I definitely was into it, but it's not my favorite style of gameplay.
No.
Yeah,
And it's funny you mentioned. Sorry,
ahead.
Cyber. I was
No,
going
go
to
ahead,
just
go
real
ahead.
quick say you. It's funny you mentioned Red Dead 2, right? Because if you look at Red Dead 2 holistically, I think the biggest complaint people had was probably the same thing.
Yeah, the same thing.
You know, the gunplay and some of the gameplay aspects of it just not being, top tier.
Yeah, I'm somewhat in a similar boat as well. I think the additions that they made to this gameplay, like the dodge button, was really
Oh, that was
it
great.
was
Yeah,
great,
that was huge.
But the only thing I didn't like about that, it was just like dodge and you can just spam square, dodge, spam
Yeah.
square, dodge, spam. It was like the same move over and over again. Obviously, the jumping added a whole new element to the game. I enjoyed the rope, solving puzzles and things like that. But
Yeah.
they were so simple, and I don't think there were enough of them. Like it was very, like the first puzzle you have to do. It's very simple when you have to do the was it the generator? I think it was first in Seattle.
Yeah,
I
if you're
think it might have
talking
been.
about the one with the gate.
Yeah, with the gate. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I enjoyed being prone, but there was the mechanics, like you guys mentioned with the shooting, kind of just felt more the samey. There was no really real innovation or what they did before. Maybe kind of like what Khan mentioned. Maybe that's deliberate, just so it creates more tension. When you miss a shot, you're you have a number set of ammo, but
Yeah.
I played it on normal first, and it's like you had enough ammo to do whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
But
How many is normal to moderate? Is that
Yes.
normal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is. I did the same thing, and yeah, I mean, I was loaded up the whole time.
Yeah.
And I typically play stealth, so I mean, I had all kinds of stuff I never even used. I don't even think I used a smoke bomb or a proximity mine. I just,
So what the thing with the stealth for me was I got to the point where I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to create havoc because it became too much of the samey. Like you
Yeah,
just and it just you stay and it became more the same, and the same became a little bit too repetitive. The workbench was good. The animations on the workbench were great.
Those
cool.
were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really cool.
Did any of you guys get attacked while you were on a workbench or no?
Yeah, there's that one,
Yeah,
right?
that was one. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and funny, what is really cool about that? So Dan, who I do big cast with, he got the platinum already, and so on his second playthrough, he knew that was coming, and he set up proximity mines all around that area. So as soon as he went to the workbench, he heard them go off, and you can actually, they come in like a real gameplay scenario.
Okay.
So it blew like two of the people up, and he basically killed them all before they even got to him, which is cool.
Right, because there's all those locked doors they come busting out of, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think about the clickers this time around?
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
I thought
them.
they were really well done too.
The sound design, right? We're back to sound design almost, but it's not just the soundtrack, but the actual environmental designs. I mean, clickers have to be some of the coolest and creepiest sounding enemies in any game. I mean, they just have to be.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing, and some of the environments. I felt like, on the screen right now, you're seeing the Shamblers, the new enemy.
Mhm.
And some of the enemies some of the environments that you found yourself in this game were very horror-like, and I love horror games.
Oh yeah.
So I really liked it. I think the sound design of the clickers and just some of the environmental sounds were really, really well done.
Yeah, I one thing with the gameplay that I was gonna mention too was you kind of mentioned was your AI. For a game like this, it just threw you off that immersion when you're hiding or you're trying to do stealth, and then your companion is with you, and there's literally like somebody either from the WLF or the scars literally like looking at your AI in front
I
of
know.
you, and it
I know.
breaks that immersion. It automatically, and you're like, oh, okay, and now let me just do whatever I have to do here. Or that's why at one point I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna try to go stealth here and there, and then I just went guns blazing. I love the addition of the dogs. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, though they pissed me off.
Yeah, oh,
They
man,
could smell.
yeah.
She must have not showered or something.
Oh,
We never
world,
saw
you
her
a
shower, but
natural
dude, they
shower.
had her scent and they had it like
Quick,
You
yeah.
weren't
Yeah.
losing them barely.
Yeah, I usually took them out first.
Oh, you had
You were
to.
talking.
You had
You were
to.
talking about AI though. I have this hilarious clip going back to that damn subway scene where you're with Dina and you got clickers and the WLF down there, right? And I was hiding in the back of the train car, just letting havoc take place. I basically, threw stuff out to get the clickers chasing the enemies,
Yep.
and so I was watching it all unfold. Well, a clicker comes from the right side in front of the train. Dina comes from the left side, and they literally ran into each other face to face and just kept running like
Oh my.
into each other for like 10 seconds. And I was like, this is the problem when you don't program AI companions well, right? Like you said, it just completely like I ended up. It's a very serious scene, and I'm just sitting there laughing, like, look at how broken this looks.
Right, right. I think there was one thing too that you kind of every time you went into a section, you kind of had to figure out what the developer wanted you to do. At one point, I like to clear an area before I proceed. Oftentimes, you didn't know if you had to run. I think that subway area, you have to bypass them, right, or you get killed. There was a specific area where you have to run for a doorway, and there's no
where
other
you're
way.
it's dark, and
It's
then you're
dark.
like, trying to get in.
Yeah, and
There's a
you
couple of those.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
you have to run. So, me being the way I play is, oh no, I gotta clear everybody here. Then I can calmly scavenge the area, and then I'll
Right.
go through where they want me. At points you died a couple times just trying to figure out what you wanted to do. But
Yes.
how did you guys like playing as did you find enough difference between playing Abby and Ellie? I personally thought I kind of enjoyed playing as Abby more than I did with Ellie, just because she was a lot more brute force. Like the way she would come with somebody and just she would just knock
Destroy
people out. She was just so strong. I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's almost, if you think of it like a shooter, right? I liked her loadout better.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Like
pretty much, yeah.
I liked her guns better. I liked the fact that she had pipe bombs. When I saw you could make pipe bombs, I was like, oh, I'm in on this.
Yeah.
Versus like smoke bombs, which I like I said, I didn't even use a single one the whole game.
Right.
So I definitely liked her loadout better, and I liked the skill I liked most for her, as you said, was the I forget what they call it, but it was that continuation of melee attack where like you kill somebody with a melee and then momentum.
Yeah.
It's called momentum, right?
Yeah, you keep striking enemies.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was much more engaging than some of the things we were talking about earlier. We had complaints with like the kind of, I won't say unpolished, but just rough around the edges kind of gunplay at times.
Mm-hmm.
Playing as Abby was, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. There was a reason why when she snuck up on somebody, she was breaking necks, and Ellie she needed a knife. She was like, "Okay, here you go."
I've been working out harder since I played the game. I'm trying to keep up with Abby, man.
Oh man,
It's a task.
Yeah, putting my tries to shame over here.
Did you like one style over the other, Cotton? Do you prefer?
Oh yeah,
Abby or
definitely.
Ellie?
I definitely favored playing as Abby. I don't know. The game felt, as much as that's so jarring to be, that once you realize, like once you start collecting craftable components and supplements, you're like, oh boy, like, okay, I'm about to be playing as this character for a little while.
Yeah.
It started to sink in. It started to feel a lot more fresh because as you progress, you get all these, I don't know, I feel like, her loadout was better, for lack of better words. You put it very well. She's just satisfying. I was more like you too, Cyber, where like I was playing stealth for a little bit in the beginning, but then like once I realized I was blowing people's limbs off and legs off, I was like, okay, this is what I like. Like I just like messing up all these people. So, and with her, she's so brutal, man. Like she was so brutal. And the crossbow, loved the crossbow.
Yes, great addition.
That was so great. Yeah, no, she was great to play as. I had a lot more fun. It was just the kills on both sides are satisfying, but for some reason with her, just the way you perform those strikes and like you said, the momentum. I loved whenever
Yeah.
I got that, I was all about it.
It just felt
I
like she had
love
so
that.
much more weight, man. Like there
Yeah,
was
you
one
really
time when she
feel
was
it.
fighting, when she made connection with like a punch, and there was a one
Right.
punch, and there was just like one hit down, boom. And then
Yeah,
the way she would
absolutely.
stomp, the clickers'
Yeah,
heads,
curb stomping the
curb
heads
stomping. I was
off.
like,
Uh,
oh my god,
Yeah, that's what I mean. She was just a tank, and you
yeah,
definitely nailed it. You feel like the force behind her punches, like you
yeah,
should, because she's built that way. Like this, very intentional, but she just is like just a force to be reckoned with when you're playing with her, as opposed to Ellie's. She's more savage, and
right.
I feel like Abby's more just like got some just badassery to the way she fights.
Yeah. What do you guys think
Yep.
about the skill tree, the way they did it this time?
So it's different. I like that you still had to find training manuals, but what that does from a gameplay perspective, right, is that um, because you get I think there were at least 4, maybe 5 manuals each, right? Because you get at least a few of them so late in the gameplay section of each character, you can upgrade it only if you save all your supplements,
Mhm.
right? Because you don't get enough supplements or upgrade materials to do 100% of the character skills or the guns on one playthrough,
Right.
Right.
which I think is a terrible design decision on a
Yeah.
linear story game, in my
Right,
opinion.
right, right. Sometimes you
But
hit those checkpoints when you can't go back to, and you're like, I didn't
yeah,
look. Yeah.
yeah, that drove. Well, yeah, as like a collectible guy, that drove me nuts too. But yeah, I have a problem with that. I also think, okay, you added the training manuals, which is fine. The way you get them, and I like how it like sequentially goes. But because it's sequential, you don't really have any design choice here. Like, there's no true character building. It just feels
Right.
like you get stronger as you go, but there's no player decision too much and
Yeah.
how that's developed. And I again, I think I know we're going to keep touching on it, but that's why when I see all these reviewers give this game a 10, and I sit down and put 35 plus hours into a single playthrough, and I look at things like the AI, and I look at things like this design decision around skills and not having enough upgrades and these things, I don't see how you give this game a 10. I know that's another topic, but this kind of plays into some of the smaller complaints I have with the game.
Right, right. How about you,
Yeah.
Kyle? What did you think about the skill tree?
Yeah, like you touched on it. Big thing for me was how you get the checkpoints and you can't go back, because I was trying to loot everywhere. I think because I've only played through it once,
Right.
and I've started a new game plus, but in my one playthrough, I think I missed like one save, and I got all the manuals. I pretty much went everywhere, and there was still points where I was like, man, did I pass this manual? Like, it's been a while, like especially specifically with Abby in the last manual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's multiple places this thing can spawn or what, but it was like, I feel like you don't get it until you're going to the island, and that's so late. It feels like there's a few. I don't know.
Yeah, there's
No,
a
you're
lot,
right.
Yeah,
And
there's
that's
a
my
lot
point.
of
You don't even get to utilize it.
Right,
you don't get to
yeah.
right. It's not the same as if like you have all the trees available to you and then you kind of pick. Like, I feel like
Right.
That was
most everybody can
my
narrow
biggest
out
pet
what
peeve
is.
too. Yeah, like you
Yeah,
have to go in order, like of
Yes.
the way they want. I
Yeah.
was just like, oh come on, you're killing me with this.
Yeah, I feel like everyone kind of can narrow down what's the best ones. Most of us probably went the same route with how we used our supplements. That's just little gripes. I mean, overall, I like that if you just run through the story, like I know so many of my friends who just they don't care. They just go cutscene to cutscene. Like,
Right.
then people are kind of rewarded for looking around and getting these manuals. That's satisfying to me in that sense. But I don't know. It felt similar to the first game.
What
to
do you
me.
think about the somewhat open area in Seattle? Did you like how they opened up the world a little bit, let you explore
Yeah,
around?
I liked how that was like pretty semi-open world there, and you can choose to do everything or some or none. I mean, that's cool. I wasn't super expecting it. It felt like similar to Gears 5, but more dense and more things to do and collect, more rewarding.
I like you say that because I made that comparison on one of the shows I did too. It's very similar, in my opinion, to what Gears 5 did, where they opened it up and you could find these limited engagements and kind of look for specific things throughout the world. I felt it was very similar in design. Yeah.
Which that was something I liked in Gears 2, and I thought here it was just maybe done. It was just a little bit more, and it was a little bit more rewarding for the size and the scale of the area, and not having like
and it felt more. I don't know the word. It felt more complete or tied into the world that you were in.
I was about to say,
it really
felt
like
it felt more immersed.
Add zone to add zone. It felt like you were still just immersed. It was very immersive to be doing that. In other words, as opposed to I just want to go search this area to make sure there's nothing there. It's like I actually wanted to be breaking these windows and checking places out, and wasn't sure if there's going to be enemies there or not. I was just totally into exploring the whole zone. I kind of wish there was a bit more of that, honestly. I did like that.
Me too.
One of my pet peeves too with games like this where they have collectibles is like we had the map, right? And they would check off the buildings that you've been through, but they wouldn't check off the rooms. Like, okay, you still gotta did I explore like everything in here or didn't I? Then it's like one of those things. But,
and you don't get a collectible checklist until you beat the game.
Right.
Then you can go back and look at the chapters and see what you missed. And believe me, you missed a significant amount.
Oh, for sure.
Because stuff is hidden. Like there's I'm a big collectible guy. There's 286 collectibles in this game.
Jeez.
And I spent over 35 hours on my playthrough. Like
just
Dan and Bert like make fun of me when I play a game because you'll watch me and I literally go in every corner. I just walk into every corner. I look at every wall, and I ended with
developers do that. They take advantage of like a lot of gamers.
They do.
I'm one of those. That's why, like when I play like The Witcher, AC, any Assassin's Creed game, all these games they just start adding question marks and collectibles just for the sakes of it, because they know there's a lot of gamers like us that check every corner. They have to go to every location, every mark, just to see what's there, because you don't feel like you completed the whole game until everything is done,
Yeah, and even doing that, I don't know where you guys ended, but even doing that, I was just under 200 items finishing. So I went back and looked, and it's like there's all kinds of stuff hidden. There's stuff hidden in cars where you have to break the window of the cars. Yeah. There's just stuff all over the place, and which I like, right? But it's just it's.
Yeah, it kind of gets you a little bit. Like I was in every corner because through the playthrough as Ellie, I mean, I got a lot. I got almost everything in Seattle. Like, and that's one of the bigger zones. Like once you see that checklist, and they're really thorough. I was actually very happy with the checklist that they gave us in that menu.
Yes,
because it breaks it down completely for you to show you where and what and how many you missed,
and you can jump into it,
and you can jump right into that segment, which it's so nice for me. I was worried about that, about having to like, oh man, am I gonna have to play through the whole game and kind of do a walkthrough, or like I need some sort of strategy guide to really get everything, because I'm OCD about it. But no, as Ellie, I was a lot more thorough than when I was Abby. I think I missed almost all of the coins with Abby, if I'm being honest. But I got almost every card.
How'd you guys?
Oh man, I missed a few cards in Seattle. When I look back at the menu, I was so disappointed in myself. I'm like,
well, there was some that I think there's an area where you literally start, and if you don't turn around 180 degrees, there's like a car or something. There's a car. Right. If you go forward, okay, you're done.
Yep.
Like it's that simple.
So it's hilarious you bring that up, Cyber, because my wife happened to be watching a few times when I was playing, because she knows how crazy I get with these big releases. Like I took vacation off of work. Like I take this shit like seriously.
Yeah.
So she was watching, and I spawned into a level, and I immediately turned around and walked backwards, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh man," I said, "I've been gaming for 40 years. I said, one of the first developer tricks is you always spawn things behind the player when they start. So anytime I play a game, the first thing I do on every level in any game is I go backwards. It's just like it's completely inherent to how I play a game. And I explained that to her, and she just looked at me like, "Oh my god, you're crazy." But
You know, it's funny.
it is
I
kinda
do
funny you
that
bring
at
that up.
I do that in Ori. Like when I played Ori, like it's like, okay, go to the right. I'm like, no, let me go left real quick.
Always, yeah. Whatever way you want me to go, and you're
Yeah.
pointing me, I'm going the other
Yeah.
way. So,
Yeah, my cousin, because I passed the controller with him back and forth on the Last of Us original one, and he just watched me play. I mean, he wasn't going to play when I was playing. He had to wait for this part 2, but he caught on because he's more of like I'm just going to get through to the, all the story beats and get the game over with. But like anytime you drop down like a hole or anything, and it's like, okay, go forward. And I'm like, no, it's like this. Don't go anywhere they want you to go. Not at first. Like go everywhere else. Check everything else. And that's what I felt. They got me. They took advantage of me a little bit. And I cannot tell you how many empty cabinets and drawers I opened. And I was just like, ugh, every time looking for the files or any sort of ammo. I was like opening. I was like, man, I can't imagine if I was playing on the harder or the hardest difficulty. I feel like everything would have been empty.
Yeah,
like,
so and that's one thing too. A lot of people complain about Red Dead because of those same animations. Well, it was in this game too, and nobody brings it up. I find that a little bit odd. I don't actually mind it because I like watching that. Like I'll take my time, but I just find it odd that they'll complain about gripe. Right. They'll complain.
Don't get me started.
Oh man, we're gonna get started. This is what about. This is what this podcast is about.
They're like, yeah, Last of Us is a 10, and I couldn't get into Red Dead. The animations were just weird. I'm like, all right, just go away from me.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, go away from me.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on gameplay, guys, that you guys want to touch on? I think this game is pretty much, with a few additional things that we mentioned, it's pretty similar to the first one. They did innovate a couple of different things, but overall, if you play the first game, or if you've played a third person shooter game, I would even say adventure game, I think you'll be familiar with this game as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. Almost the problem is you expect, after years and years of development and the reviews the game gets early on and the level of respect it has, you expect, I think Cotton said, it's more innovation, and you don't get it. And I think that's where I struggle. That's the one thing I struggle with this franchise, is, which we're going to get to here on the story, and the character development is so top tier. It's so far above most games that it disappoints me that Naughty Dog can't put that same level of attention into gameplay.
Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah. Overall, super satisfying. Yeah, it was super satisfying. Like, close quarters combat, the actual kills, satisfying, visually impressive. The gameplay was fun. I just felt a little shortchanged on, like you said, 7 years of dev time. Thought like just specifically with the crafting, like, and the supplements, for me, it was like identical. Besides the way, like, it felt identical to me, and I played the games almost back to back. Besides, like, the way that's animated when you're at the crafting table, but like, I just felt like, just with upgrading your weapons alone, I felt like there was way more in the first game. So I felt a little shortchanged, but it is satisfying gameplay, and I think it fits the world. The very gritty, not very many resources, and just intense sort of gameplay. I think it fits the game. So
yeah, I agree.
Not a big complaint.
Okay, well, we got 2 out of the way, so let's get to the meat and potatoes of this thing, and that story, character development, everything that we've been seeing here and there. This is pretty much what has divided the Last of Us community. Sorry about my dog. They're shooting fireworks outside right now, and he's going a little nuts. But yeah, so story, Cotton, let me hear what you thought about the overall story. Then we can break it down into thirds. We could probably go the Ellie route, then the Abby, and then the finale or the final section. So overall, what'd you think of the story?
I mean, obviously, we've been talking spoilers this whole time, but oh man, it's hard. It's super hard with Ellie, for me personally, because Joel was just a star of the first. Like, he was just the reason I really wanted to play this game. And even leading into playing this game and seeing the advertisements, and like, you have like some trailers where he shows up later on, like I'm not gonna let you do this alone, or do you think I was gonna let you do this alone? I felt a little jebaited with what goes on in the first couple hours of the game, but as well as with Ellie specifically, I thought her. I don't know. I wish I really liked her character more than I ended up liking her character, because I really liked her as a kid. I don't know if that's just because kids are more likable or what, but just the way they decided to go with her being very just down, and she just felt different to me,
like complete
overall
opposite
than
of the
she
first
did.
game, right? Yeah.
Yeah, completely. She wasn't all like, I don't feel like I didn't hear a single pun from her this whole game almost. Like I can't remember one.
You know what? That's true. Now that you mentioned that, I
You
don't
know
think
what I
she
mean? And
ever
that's
cracked a joke or made a. That is true.
nothing that I remember. Like
Yeah.
even little tiny things, like she loves the game, like video games, and they have the whole like, and the Left Behind DLC where they're in the arcade and she does like the imaginary arcade game. Whenever that PS Vita shows up, I thought that was going
She's
to be
picking
like
it up.
a collectible or something, right? Like picking that up for sure. Like I'm taking that. I figured she would be taking that. You know, little things. As far as the main story beats, like she's definitely validated to be feeling the way she feels and wanting to go on this revenge path, I think. But I felt that her character was just not the same, and by the end, I think it was intentional to make you feel for Abby. But
Right.
I have a lot to say. I probably do better balancing off of you
Okay,
guys.
so
what you
yeah,
guys
so
thought about it.
Ains, what do you think of the overall story, and then we'll go into Ellie's part.
Okay, yeah, I'm with Cotton. There's so much to unpack from this game from a story and character perspective. I could probably go for hours, so I'm trying to figure out how to best kind of summarize. Cotton touched on some of it. I think my biggest problem is that, as I've said multiple times now, Ellie and Joel are special to me. The first game made them special. Their relationship is special. Ellie in particular, you felt, if you're especially someone like me, like a father, right? You felt almost like a fathership role to Ellie in the first game. Where I really struggled with 2 here is, you know, I don't know how to break this up.
You know, so I'll give my my quick synopsis of the story too. I thought I held the first game in such high regard because of the storytelling, and I think this game did did this justice to the first game. There were so many things missing. Characters to me were out of character. They didn't act like themselves. The characters that were introduced really were just there as fillers. You know, things happened to them. They were never mentioned again. If somebody died on one faction or another, like the story overall to me here was not even close to the first one. I don't know.
Okay.
It feels like it's from a different writer, a different studio. Like this was a different studio making this game compared to the first one. The first one I hold in such high regards, and the character development, the story that they tell, the hope that Joel gets because of Ellie, and the character arc that we see, you know, Joel from the beginning and Ellie from the beginning of the first game too, to this one, I think it misses it. I think the story in this game just missed the mark for me.
It's a major disconnect. Yeah.
So let's talk about Ellie's. Oh, so go ahead, Ains. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and you know, one of the things I say in my review, and I feel it's literally the simplest way I can explain the sequel to anyone, is the old adage: just because you can, it doesn't mean you should.
Right.
And what I feel like this entire game was designed around is taking characters that a community loves and saying, okay, what would people think if we did this, and you push people to the edge with characters you've already established and love. And again, you can do that, and you'll get a response, and it can be meaningful, but it doesn't mean it should have been done. And that's what I feel about a lot of the story and the writing in this game.
Yeah, there's a difference between a dramatic feel that the audience actually feels and shock value, I think, in my opinion. I think they went a lot for shock value here than for some actually meaningful, scene or action to happen in this world. So let's talk about Ellie's part. The first I would say the first half of the game, or the first half of the game you play it as Ellie. What'd you think about how the first act of this game played out? Ains, I'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, so the setup is what it is, and you it's kind of weird, right? Because you set up with the start with Tommy and Joel, and you get to Ellie, and there's obviously tension in that relationship.
Yeah,
which
I thought it was amazing the way they started out with.
And you kind of she's older. This is 5 years later, and she's a teenager. God, I haven't raised teenagers. Don't get me started. But we'll uncover that over time. And then you play as Ellie, and or you play as Abby even briefly before you really know who Abby is.
The first main gameplay segment is really Abby.
Yeah, and you don't know where it's going, and then obviously the thing happens with Joel, and so I was fortunate enough to avoid spoilers leading up to this game.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that was coming, and that hit me like a brick.
Ooh, man!
Because Joel, I identified with Joel. Joel was me in Last of Us 1. You know what I mean?
I don't think you were the only one that identified with Joel. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and so seeing that happen, I have a lot of thoughts on that. It's okay, kind of what I just said, right? Okay, you can do that, but you better be damn well going somewhere meaningful. And so then you take over as Ellie, and then at that point, and I know we're going to stop on Ellie right here, but at that point, I'm kind of in the sense of I'm not happy about what you did to Joel, but now you're going to let me be Ellie, and we're going to take care of this.
Listen, let's just speak about it freely. We can't just hold to sections of this game because it just comes. Comes too much. There's too much stuff.
It's holistic, right?
It's hard to hold back.
Yeah. We'll bounce off each other. It's fine. So go ahead. Speak freely, Ains. Go ahead.
Okay, so then I was like, okay, even though it would have been more predictable, I think that my feeling is, okay, you now leave the player who loves Joel and Ellie coming into this game. You now leave them with Ellie, and the whole build-up and even the marketing for this game was, I'm going to find every one of them, and I'm going to make them pay. And I'm like, all right, I'm on board. You've got me, right? I'm Ellie. I'm going to go handle this, and we're going to just tear shit apart. And so where I get into the problems, and I'll stop in a second here, but where I get into the problems is then that's only half of the game.
Yeah.
And then you put people in Abby's shoes, and 15% of the way into playing Abby, because Bert and Dan were ahead of me in the game, and we were not spoiling it for each other, but I was like, if this game's going where I think it's going, I think it's going to be a mistake. And it went there. You play the whole basically parallel path of Abby. You learn her history, you learn the other characters. And it's not that writing was bad. It was actually really, really good.
Execution.
Yeah, but it's
in out
of
order,
I want to be playing as Abby? I don't have any. Abby means nothing to me. And you want me to feel for Abby, but I have 7 years of history of feeling for Joel and Ellie.
Right.
Right.
So I've got a lot more to say, of course, but I don't want to keep going.
Yeah. So I'll briefly jump in here, and then you can go, Cotton. I thought the beginning of the game, from everything that everybody was talking about, being spoiled, being this, and the game is gonna be trash. I played that the beginning of the game, and I said, "No way, man! This is the game right here. This is it right here. This is The Last of Us." The beginning of the game is so strong up to where Joel dies, and you feel like they're doing these characters. You see that there's tension there. You see that there's something wrong through the dialogue. Obviously, that beginning section, I thought it was amazing. You start off with a discussion or a conversation with Tommy, and you let him know. You know exactly what happened. I thought they did. I thought their portrayal of Joel, just making him seem like he was just doing something evil or bad,
Yeah.
was very unjust because he was in a very difficult decision. Like, how you're asking him to choose between someone who he now recognizes as his daughter,
Yep.
in you know, let's say a potential cure, Where-
Which they set
which
up
they
in the
set-
first game by the death of his daughter,
right, you
right at
know?
the start.
Right at the start, and then I was like, okay, but you know, you got to give some context there or what he did, sure, okay. And then where it really got me is when he walked in and he sees Ellie, and you can see that's a year later, right? And he's there, and she's at the desk, and then he just not just her, and she's kind of like Ains mentioned, like typical teenager at that time, like,
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
want, Joel? Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
time for me to freaking, you know, whatever. And then he's like, oh, I was gonna tell you a joke, but you knew at that time, he knew the joke the whole damn time. He didn't forget
Right.
the joke. He was just getting a feel for what she was gonna say. And then
Yeah.
like the little things, man, like he sits down and then you get to play the guitar. I was like, damn it, this is awesome. I was like, yes. And then, you know, obviously get the interaction between him and Ellie, and you're like, oh man, yeah, this is what it's about. And then it does a huge time jump, you know, and then she's obviously, you know, older. She's 19 or 4 years past that point. So 5 years
Yeah,
after
19.
the first game, 19.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, you go through the town. There was obviously some altercation between her and I forgot the guy's name from the bar or the breakfast
Yeah, I
place.
forget his name.
But
Jesse.
no, the guy
The
that
guy
that called her.
Yeah, Joel.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the bigot
So,
dude.
yeah. So there was obviously an altercation. You kind of get a little bit of background, but just walking through that little town, and you're
Yeah.
seeing all the little the conversations the you would see signs for the party that happened the day before. Like, all these little details were amazing. The way the AI would interact with each other, it was so good. It was so good. And then they even do one better, like when you played the snowball fight with the kids.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I was just like, oh man. And then I honestly thought they were when Ellie was when other little kids were jumping Dina. I was just like, oh, you little monsters. I thought Dina that's the way that Dina was gonna go. I was like, are they foreshadowing something right here? You know,
Oh
get
man,
away.
like all the zombies piling on her.
So and then after that section we play as Abby, which I thought it was fine. It was a good introduction to her, but not the best, knowing what we know a little bit later in the game. I didn't mind playing as Abby, but I just wanted to get back to Ellie and see what the story with her and Joel were going to go. And
Yeah.
where it went, and it went so fast. You literally, the only time you play as Joel is that beginning, like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes. And for such a
Stings.
beloved character, you're
Yeah,
like,
it does.
what?
It
And
does.
I didn't mind. This was an Ellie game. I knew that from the get-go.
Right.
But playing
But
as Joel
and
for
that's the
5
problem. It
minutes-
wasn't, right?
Right.
Like at the end of the day, it was half an Ellie game.
Right. Precisely that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you play as Abby, and you can see Owen trying to tell her, listen, we're a little bit above our head here, you know, like what we shouldn't really do this. So you're getting kind of you can see that these two cared about each other at some time, and then there's obviously a love triangle there between him, Mel, and Abby.
Right.
And the conveniency for things to just fall on Abby's lap, I thought it was just too much for me. I was just like, no way, man, you know. And for people to say that, hey, they've lived in this world for a long time, they've been safe for 5 years, Joel and Tommy would let their guard down, I said no way. And there's situations that happened before that kind of confirms. When Jesse goes to Ellie before these events happen, he said, hey, your old man always gets paranoid when you go out, you know. So Joel is still in that mindset that this is that world that he's, you know,
That
been
he
living in
knows.
for the whole time. 25
Right.
years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
25 years he's been surviving. He knows what's going on out there. He's had a safe community. They have a sanctuary, but that's it. When you're outside of those walls, you have to be on alert the whole time. And him and Tommy, like two extremely strong characters, the way that they just fall on her lap, the way that they introduce themselves, the way that they give all this information willingly. I was just like, what are we
Yeah.
what are we playing here? Like, this is the thing that got me too. And then Tommy, like, they get inside when no, they obviously we run from the herd of zombies and we go back to her place. So they go through the gates. Joel and Tommy automatically, they know this area better than anyone, right? They've been living here for at least 5 years that we know of, right? They know this area better than anyone. So they know everyone that's been there. If you read the journals, like, there's been multiple logs of them seeing, I think they were seeing these the Salt Lake City crew. Because
Right.
Dina wrote on one of the journals, hey, we saw some people, they looked harmless, but they were armed or something like that. She made a log
you're
about
right.
it.
Right. Yeah,
There's,
you're right.
there's definitely like mention of
There was
these-
mentions of that, and like maybe
Yeah.
we should check that. Maybe we should like check these people out. And for them to go there, meet the whole crew, see how well they're equipped, seeing that they're all wearing the same uniform or patches or whatever, so you know this is an organized
it's-
group. All
It's
along,
not just a group of
it's
like,
not
or
just a group of
small
people
group of
surviving,
friends.
right?
It's
Right.
like
Right.
they're affiliated.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I know they just saved her life, so maybe they let their guards down a little bit. But they go inside the garage. I personally thought that they were gonna stay with their horses. You know what I mean? No, we'll stay here with the
Yeah.
horses. We'll leave when the storm goes by. No, they go to the basement. Now, one thing that I'm not sure about that cutscene is I don't know if the basement was in like right after the garage, because when you're with Ellie, you go down the stairs, but they didn't go down any
Right.
stairs, right? They went from the garage. They went to the basement.
Yeah, there's a cut there, and
There's
there's,
a
a,
cut
window in there.
Because if they
too.
went down the stairs to the basement with this group, then oh man, then all hell's
everyone
breaks
would be
loose.
like,
You know
"What's
what I mean?
going
Like, what are
on?"
we doing? And
Yeah.
then Tommy gets there, and then everybody a lot of people know that. Okay, if you like, Joel knows, man, he has an instinct for confrontation, for traps, for setups, everything. We saw, this in the first game, even on trailers when he was like, "Oh, I've been on both ends." Like, he knows how to set up something, set up
Yeah.
an ambush or anything like that. What does he do? This is the one thing that drove me crazy. He gets in the middle of the room and he lets them circle him. Like, I was like, Joel, what are you doing? Come
Yeah.
on. And then Tommy just sits there. And the thing that they're all armed. And Joel and Tommy are not armed. Like, they're not taking any of their equipment with them. Like,
Yeah, they left it all on the horse.
all lifted
Yeah.
on the horse. I will say, though, at that scene, I did like how Joel was just like, you know what, whatever speech, I don't care who you are, whatever speech
Yeah.
you have rehearsed, go ahead and say it and get it over with, because I don't care. But yeah,
Yeah, that was a great line. One of my favorite lines in the whole game.
yeah. How
Yeah.
about you? Okay, Kanye, go ahead, sir. What's your-
Yeah, you're absolutely, you're killing it, both of you. It's Joel. I just have to say, like, he just steals every single scene he's in, from the flashbacks to when you're playing as him in that
Sure.
beginning sequence. Like, for me, 100%. Every scene he's in, I was locked in, and I feel like I'm more of a side note. I feel like that's why they did cut it up the way they did and have those flashbacks the way they did them, because I feel like they knew there was going to be this disconnect with a lot of fans where you get pulled out of it when you go play as Ellie, or not as Ellie, as Abby, or you know what I mean, to really keep you in, because he's so good.
Mhm.
He's such a solid character, right? It's crazy that it's very convenient how Abby just stumbles upon the one person she's looking for and the one situation that she could have got him. Like, there's no other way they were going to get him.
Right.
So there's a huge conveniency issue I had with that whole sequence. And the fact, like you said, like I don't think he would have let his guard down like that. It's literally you see it. You see him start to come to this realization of like because Tommy gives out his name, I'm Tommy, and then he's like
I
this
thought
is
that was
Joel, or
super
he says
cheesy.
I'm Joel, and it's
Yeah.
like right there you see him. He's like I'm Joel.
What was,
Like,
what was
looking
the
around.
excuse? What was the excuse they gave that they couldn't make it on their horses to their town?
I don't
The
even-
blizzard was coming in.
It was the
wasn't
blizzard.
Ah,
yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
that
yeah.
blizzard,
Yeah.
and then I mean they were completely swarmed by.
But it's
the
funny you
infected.
mentioned that though, because I thought the same thing. I'm like, why? You don't know these people at all. So beyond everything Cyber already said, why are you giving your real name? Just
Yeah.
you know, you would never do that.
So on that note, when Joel saves Abby and she looks at him, and you can tell that I mean, the animations, the character models, like everything.
She knows right then.
Does she know right then? Because
I
how would
feel
she
like-
know what Joel looks like?
I don't
And how
think,
does she
I think
know
they
that's
say
Joel?
the name. I think when they're running through those hallways. I'm
They
pretty
do
sure
not.
they're saying
They
Tommy.
only say the name when they get blocked in. They block in all the doors, and then
When they're in the
Joel-
room there.
they're in the
Yeah.
big room, and then they're like, and then Tommy's like, okay, I'm Tommy. This is my brother Joel. But before
Yeah.
they get there, he never says the name. That was one
It-
thing that I was just like, how does she know that's Joel? Because
Because it feels-
she looked at
They
him like she knew
paused, I
who
think,
he
when-
was.
When he says that, I think they show a couple of the members and they kind of pause and look at each other.
Yeah, they definitely all the members. I don't know why I have this sort of feeling that she knows, or that I know that that's when that group of people finds out for sure. I
Right.
felt like she knew for some reason, like as they're escaping. I felt like she realizes then for some reason. I could be totally wrong, but like whenever he says it, even as Owen comes over to Abby and she's like, I know, and she's like, yeah, like she's aware of what it sounded like, or maybe she just becomes aware. Either way, it's totally out of character from my point of view on just the way that him to be like, like you said in the scene in the first one where you got the guy standing in the middle of the road and he's like acting like he needs help, and he's like, no, he starts speeding up in the truck. Like he's seen
Yeah.
it all before. And people will make that argument, you say, where it's like, yeah, it's been 4 years. There's those collectibles that you can read that say like, we're trying to start kind of fresh in Jackson. We're trying to regain our humanity and, welcome in new people into Jackson. And that's why people will be like, well, yeah, he's let his guard down. This is why Tommy's like, you guys should come back. You should come restock. Come down to Jackson. It's just, that's not presented well enough for as much story as they give to you through gameplay and cinematics. That's a key thing to leave out. I feel like, it just is.
Yeah, man. And I think for, like we were mentioning, between an actual dramatic effect and a shock value.
Yeah.
I think they were just going for shock. I mean, I understand the story they were trying to tell and that needed to happen. The execution, it was too early. Too early.
Yeah,
you had
100%.
you had no connection to Abby at that point. From that point on, I almost didn't want to play anymore. I said, no way, man.
That's the point, right? That's one of my biggest issues is right near the start of the game, because it's a long game. Right
Yeah,
near the start of the
long.
game, the only introduction you have to Abby is killing the character that you adore and identify with.
Right.
And then you play as Ellie and you think you're on this revenge tour, right? But then all of a sudden the game is like, here, now you're going to play as Abby, the person you hate and despise and think you're going to kill.
Yep.
But you're going to spend the whole rest of the game playing as her and learn why her side of the story. And again, I get it. You guys aren't geniuses. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I get what you're trying to do here, but do I want to do it? Not really.
Right.
Yeah.
The motivation is off. The execution is off. They
It-
definitely could have just executed that better. An introduction with her, because they obviously want you to empathize with Abby through the game, right?
Eventually, yeah,
Oh,
that's the whole
eventually,
point,
yeah.
right?
That, eventually, but that's the way they did it. Like you can't redeem that.
You can't,
Really,
it's
you know what I
it's
mean?
It's a beloved character that people have been waiting 7 years, kind of like what Ains alluded to earlier. 7 years to play with. Not even to play as Joel, but have Joel be part of the story. Have Joel still be there as a companion to Ellie. maybe not a
Right.
companion, maybe someone that's still, in that world for some reason. And kind of like where you were mentioning, when that scene happens and she just starts wailing at his head, doesn't kill him yet though, just starts, brutally
Yeah.
freaking torturing him.
Yeah,
You go
she
to-
shoots him first.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, man, when
yeah.
she blew like his leg
blows
out, I was
his
like,
knee
oh
out
my
and
god.
it's
completely.
funny because like I miss like how bad his knee really looked, because his
Dude.
knee, like his leg is gone.
It
like
is
Oh, his leg's gone.
His leg
And
is
my
gone.
wife came down right at that point too, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like in shock, and she's looking at me. I was like, "Now's not the time." Not the time. You know,
Yeah.
like God, it took me back.
She fully tortured him. They tourniqueted his
Fully,
leg,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
And how do you even
mean-
how do you feel empathy for, like, after you see that, and like I understand what they wanted to go after the game, but that everyone in that group, nobody I don't think there was, except Owen when he comes in, like, what are you doing? Like, this is taking.
Yeah.
Everybody else is just there, like, watching and doing this, and I
Yep.
was just like, no, I don't care
As
what
if-
happens to this group. Like, I literally didn't care. Just like, there's, at that point, and I don't think I'm alone here, like, no one cared for that group. You can understand, you can, you can. No,
Yeah.
like, it didn't
it's
matter.
not like he killed. Like, even with context later, like, you don't care because it's Abby singularly that if you're gonna care for anyone, it's her, because it's her dad and her that was mostly affected. You could argue.
right,
And it's
what-
not like he killed everyone's family. It's not. They're all just bystanders there, and
Right.
Owen is the only one who comes in with a little bit of like, just finish this. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
you have what you want right here. Why are you gonna do it this way, like this? Like, this is not, like what you're here for, type of
Yep.
thing.
right.
And I think so. Let me ask you guys this, because we haven't touched on it yet. But for me, the most meaningful, or I should say, memorable scene of the entire game was when they do the flashback at the museum
Oh
with Joel
my
and Ellie.
god! Yeah,
Yeah.
that comes
And-
later on when they get to the theater and she falls
Yeah,
asleep.
and the space scene,
yeah,
like in the spaceship and the museum with the dinosaurs.
Man,
And
That was top
ahead.
notch.
Yeah, and everyone I've talked to who's beaten this game and had a conversation with it like this about is that was the best part of the game. I hear that literally everyone I've talked to have said that, and I agree. That tells you everything you need to know about the audience of this game. The most meaningful part of your 30+ hour journey in Revenge and introducing an entirely new group and lead character and lead ending on what it's going to end on, which I'm sure we'll touch on, and Dina and the farm, everything. The most meaningful part to people was the flashback with Joel and Ellie.
yes,
Mhm.
And so that, to me, that just speaks to the crux of the issue I have with this game. And again, the game's fantastic, but the directionally, that speaks to the issue
well,
because
this is
it took away.
this is a story-driven game, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my point is, if that's where your player base is identifying, I get challenging the thought process of your player base. And to be fair, this game left an impression on me, something that I've continued to think about since beating it. And I think that's probably true for many. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing.
Yeah,
So I think that's where I really struggle. And I never felt for Abby, even at the end, which we can touch on, even at the very, very end, I never felt for Abby the way,
same,
even close to the way I feel for Ellie and Joel. And again, one of the other the big scenes in the game, the theater scene where you're Abby and have to fight Ellie. I almost put the controller down. I was like, I'm not going to kill Ellie. Like, I don't know what you're trying to get me to do here, but I'm not even like having fun or even want to continue if you're going to make me play Abby and have to hurt Ellie. That doesn't even like compute in my world.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's get up to the point where she gets to Seattle, goes to the theater.
Okay.
And no point. So let's just finish this first, because I guess Ellie does see, right after Abby captures Joel, we now there's another jump. I this game has so
Yep.
many jumps
some
all the
mis-
damn time.
I call it the Tarantino game.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it
it's all
throws
over
you
the
off,
place.
man. Your immersion gets every time something good's gonna happen, and we're gonna touch on this later too. Every time something's good, oh shoot, there's a cliffhanger. Boom, cut back, go do something else. Like what? So we go to Ellie. She was caught in the blizzard with Dina. They found some shelter, which was his name Ed? It was Ed, right? Like the small talk between the characters is phenomenal. I really enjoy that. But only when they were by themselves. You know, when they were by themselves doing just little small talks here and there. What was the name of the guy that died that they found his warehouse? What was his name? Do you guys remember?
Who that died?
The older gentleman that died, and then that's where they're taking shelter from the blizzard. That's where they
Eugene.
Eugene, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right, Eugene. And I thought it was funny because I thought maybe that was a call out to The Walking Dead Eugene, because Eugene on The Walking Dead was also smart, very like dry humor, right? Like, and they mentioned that. But you know, they have a cool. The thing with that I know it seemed like they cared for a lot for each other between Dina and Ellie, but I never felt like they really cared about each other. Did anybody else get that feeling?
No, I totally didn't feel the chemistry. I think the
I
problem with that is that it's so fast. It's so rushed. Like they're literally, it's right at the beginning of the game. They pretty much sleep together, right?
Right.
There's just no build up. You know what I mean? Like they could have had this sort of chemistry and then led up to something like that, like in the theater even. But it's just like, so from that point on, it's just the same with them the whole time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really, for me, doesn't evolve or become like, okay, there it is. There's the reason why they're a thing is not until literally the end at the house. Like I don't see anything there.
Yep.
And that's just, I don't know if that's why, like, Dina was not one of I didn't care for Dina. Like, I feel like a lot of people did. She very well voice acted, and I just didn't see that connection there. It just felt like a forced love sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think
the game.
I agree, and I think part of the reason why is if you take a step back and examine the two games, right? The first game, overwhelmingly you spend with Joel and Ellie, and so that relationship is the game, especially by the end of it, right? Whereas what they tried to do here was they end the relationship with Joel, they kind of blow over the relationship with Tommy. I mean, he's an afterthought. They try to force in this relationship with Dina. They try to get you to like Abby. They try to get you to understand Abby's group. They try to force too many relationships into a single game and make them all meaningful, and it just doesn't work.
I think the parallel between the two groups was driving me freaking crazy. Listen, it really was. So you have Abby and Ellie.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have a love figure, Owen and Dina, right? You also have two pregnant women in both sides. You have Dina and Mel, right? You have a strong, I wouldn't say strong, a somewhat leader, right? So you have Manny on one side and you have Jesse. Like it was just too much. There's a love triangle going on in this group. There's also a love triangle going on here. Like what?
Yeah.
To me, it was just too much. Like I understand we're supposed to see Abby's group and faction. They're literally saying, hey, look, it's the same, everything you have over here, they have the same thing going over there. But I thought it was just too forced, too much in my opinion. And one thing about the relationship between Ellie and Dina, later on when you find out that Jesse came and he was gonna help, which by the way, the tracking skills on all these people through rain,
amazing,
through all this, it's amazing. They know. Okay, I want to go where they went.
I need to learn at go to Jackson tracking school.
Exactly. When Dina sees Jesse for the first time and he walks in, and it's like her face like glows. She's like, "Oh my God, Jesse!" And I was like, "Oh shit, they're gonna try to introduce something here. You know, they're gonna either Ellie's gonna get jealous, like something else is gonna happen here. Nope.
Yeah, I expected that.
Nope. I felt more affection from Dina towards Jesse than I did when Dina's talking to Ellie. But maybe it's because of the state of mind Dina had, you know, towards Ellie at that point, because she knows she's going a little bit too far. But yeah, I thought the parallels between the two groups were a little bit too much for me. But what were you gonna say, Ains? Or Cotton? Sorry.
Oh yeah, you're right. The parallels were consistently in your face, is the way I think about it. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I pick up that they are similar, and that it's just like it's in your face with the love triangle and the father figures both being taken away.
Yeah.
I don't know. And you're right. I definitely thought that when Jesse showed up again, like, first off, I loved Jesse's character. He was one of my favorite new characters, honestly. He's kind of held his ground. I liked his writing. I like that he seemed to really care the way they wrote him, and he stuck around, even though he would give Ellie, like, let her know she's kind of messing up, like, at the same time. It's like, look, we gotta go back type thing, even later on. But no, yeah, I definitely, Dina, like you said, like, you see that connection with Dina and Jesse that you I thought I was either missing, like, myself, or just wasn't there between her and Ellie. I fully expected to be like a curveball, be like, oh, like, just kidding, I am pregnant with his kid, so, you know, I'm actually gonna be with him and, like, have some, I don't know. I expected that, but it just never seemed to go that way.
Yeah. Yep.
I thought the supporting cast or the supporting characters were really just there to be there. They didn't actually have any weight whatsoever on anything that was going on. Nobody ever questioned any. I guess at one point or another they did question a little bit, but like, what happens to Jesse and everything. Before we get to all that, so we go through all of Seattle. So we find a theater, and so they actually get caught, right? So this is extremely odd to me too. So Dina and Ellie are riding through some trip mines, or at that time we don't know it's trip mines. They find trip mines before, but you're on your horse. So this is they take control. You don't have control over this scene. So you're actually riding with the horse. You hit a trip mine, and you get captured. Boom. And then who captures you is one of the guys. I forgot his name.
Jacob, I think.
No, Danny.
Danny.
The first time he captures you, he has you tied up, and then one of the guys comes from the faction, comes over, and he's like, "Hey." He was about to kill her, and Danny, who knows who she is, says, "No." I was just like, "Wait, what?" So this person's coming back for something that you guys did, but you don't want to kill her here. Okay, and then Dina ends up saving, and Danny, again, instead of shooting her or shooting Dina, puts his gun away, and he goes to, like, strangle Dina. And I'm like, wait, what? What is going on here? Obviously, that leads to, the whole sequence. Danny gets killed, and then you find your way through to the theater now, so you can find some shelter, and then you start typically now picking off or finding leads for you to find out where everybody is. But what do you guys think about that part? Khan?
Well, convenience falls in again. I don't know if it's just convenience, if it's that plot armor trope of, like, that explosion went off when they were on that horse and they got tossed, and I was fully expecting some injury, or I was like, oh man, like, what just happened to Dina? Because she goes kind of flying off screen even.
Not even the horse died too, so they had to shoot the horse.
No way, really?
Yeah, the guy had to shoot the horse.
Oh, that's just crazy. And I was expecting that horse to be, like, almost just mutilated by the explosion right underneath it. Anyways, yeah, it's entirely too convenient, and it suspends my my belief in what's happening when you see him, who obviously he knows Ellie and knows, like, you know, who she is, like you said, and why she could be potentially there, and he just spares her. Like, he just, and didn't she cut his face originally? Whenever
Yes.
it's the same character, right?
She did.
Yeah.
So he's already hated her. He started kicking the crap out of her back at the sequence when Joel dies. It's not like he was just one of the other characters. So this guy already very much didn't like Ellie. But then, so I don't know. I was totally was pulled me out. Guys, like, he's pointing at her, shoot her, expecting something to happen. Obviously, it doesn't happen, and he stops her from being shot, which is crazy. And then you have just Dina coming in out of nowhere and saving her. I don't know. There's a lot of convenience in that sequence alone for me.
Anything for you, Ains, in regards to that scene alone?
Not too much.
Not too
No,
much,
it
yeah.
just, you guys kind of touched on any thoughts that I would have had, and it just goes kind of back to what I said previously. It's just there seemed to be so many things that they tried to build into relationships and character building in this, and because there's so much of it that they tried to force in, it doesn't work as well, in my opinion.
Right.
And this is just another example of that.
Yeah. All right. One of the key issues that I had with this was I think the next person, does she go to the hospital next or the TV station? I'm trying to remember here.
I think it's a TV station
TV
you go
station.
to next, and
But
then
there's
they're all
nobody
hung up.
there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Man, you guys remember these details way better than I am.
So she oh, trust me, man. I'm going through the notes. I said we're doing a podcast. I gotta go through the notes. So the next character that we find with Ellie is we find Nora at the hospital, and that's the sequence that we saw on State of Play. I actually played that scene here. I can try to put it up again. That to me, I also didn't like. Not the fact that that you find Nora, and obviously we also got to remember this, right? It's like it's a video game, right? Things are gonna happen. Things are scripted. It is what it is. But the way she gets the information from Nora, I really didn't like. One, so when they start seeing tracks of Tommy, right? Because Tommy went after Abby as well. There's a sequence in which Joel does in the first game, the interrogation sequence, where he tells somebody to do this and tells somebody to do that, right?
Yeah.
And we see that Tommy has done that somewhere along the lines too. So she had Joel tell her, she had Tommy also she saw what Tommy did. So when she goes to interrogate Nora, or she's obviously the first time, so she just pointed the gun. Nora runs away. They fall. That's one of the first times you get into the whole subway, or the subway section, or underneath the hospital section. I thought that was great. But at that point, when Nora's already she breathed in the pores. She's infected, right?
Yep.
And she's over there. So she's like, "Oh, you're how are you not coughing? This and that." And she's already coughing out her lungs. She's like, "Oh, I'm the girl. I'm the immune girl," right?
Mm-hmm.
She could have said anything. She could have said, "Listen, because of my blood, I can cure you if you give me the information." She could have said that. How would Nora have known? Maybe not. Maybe she would have called her bluff. Then she would have had to, torture her the way she did, right? But even by torturing her, I think at that point Nora was a very strong character, in my opinion. She seemed like she wouldn't budge, and she said it before. She's like, "Nah, I'm not telling you nothing. I'm not giving up my friends." So she said that she beat it out. What stopped Nora, who seemed like a very smart woman, to be like, "Oh yeah, she's right here. She's in this island right here. She's on Scar Island. Go get her." Like, there was no way. There was like, she would have never given up Abby. Like, she would never thought, "Oh, she's at the aquarium." Never.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
And I think that scene is the scene that actually gave Ellie PTSD because she did something. I mean, she's killed hundreds of people and she's been okay. I'm not gonna say fine, but she's been okay to this one. But I think going to that extreme was something that really, not her doing that, but the fact that she had to do it and Nora give up the information. I think that scene could have been played out better. What do you think?
Yeah.
Lance?
Yeah, and they attempted to demonstrate it, I think, that way too, right? Is that you could see that scene in particular. And I kind of liked, outside of what you brought up, which seems like almost a break in logic, right, in the writing. I think the overall scene with Nora as a strong character, the scene of her chasing her, I think all that was well done and a nice breakup from some of the other gameplay elements we talked about. But yeah, I think that they used that to show, to demonstrate the strain, the mental strain at which this was beginning to have on Ellie.
Right.
And I think that was probably, as we talk further through the game, that was one of the things that I think they did well, is to kind of show the whole, I say, thesis of this game at its core is, how far would you go, right, as Ellie? And then what does that redemption look like at the very end, which we'll obviously get to. Right. And I think that this is one of those breaking points. So I think despite the gaps in writing that you commented on, which I agree with, I think that it did kind of put that block on top of what they were trying to build in Ellie's mental break and state at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything
that's well said. Yeah. That whole sequence, just even that hospital sequence, even seeing it in State of Play. Like I watched you, Cyber, your reaction to that State of Play. And I about had the same one when they showed it off. This looks great. Can't wait to play this. And even seeing that segment played through, that was one of my favorite segments of gameplay, honestly. I loved it. Just that whole environment, that chase, when you're going through the vents and you're climbing over top, and what is it, Nora's listened to, Today Was a Good Day.
Yeah. Funny you bring that up, because I grew up listening to that music when I was a teenager and stuff, and I walked in the hospital, I'm like, are they seriously playing this right now?
I wonder what it took for them to get get that song playing, because it is just for a moment. I just sat there listening to it for a second, and then she kind of walks off. I was like, oh man, I gotta follow her. I'm trying to listen to that song. But that segment, the chasing was cool. But yeah, that was kind of even later on, they give you more solidification that Nora was a strong character, like specifically for Abby and her group of friends. Like she even goes over Isaac's head and tells them about, their one friend who died, who he didn't want them to know about right off the top. Like, so she had their backs overall. So, and like you said, she was infected already, and they could have wrote it out a little bit better, where you're still on Abby's side, because right there, not Abby's side, Ellie's side. So at that point, for me, is really where I started to have a major disconnect with her. Like, yeah, I know she wants revenge, but she came so far, and she's pretty witty and smart, that she could have said something like that about, my blood can help you, or that's clever what you said. But she kind of just has lost it at that point, and that's when she really starts to get pretty dark. And, not that I liked the way visually the lighting in there, the red lighting was
that
amazing.
defines the horror game that Ains was talking about
earlier.
Really
well done.
Man,
absolutely amazing. I loved the way that it was. I just questioned how it kind of played out. And for her character specifically, you already kind of feel she's a strong character, and then for them to solidify her as that later on, it brought me into questioning it even more. So, great segment of gameplay.
So now on, so next she goes to the TV station where she finds, she goes to the aquarium. And that's where she finds Owen and Mel. And then there as well, she kills Abby's dog, first of all. That's the first thing.
Alice.
Alice, yep. And then she kills Mel, who is pregnant, which during that whole confrontation Which brings me back to the interrogation thing that I told you guys about. Like, if this is the second time you're interrogating somebody, you didn't learn the first time, separate them, have them sit down, get on their knees, do something. No, the same thing. Obviously, Owens tries to get her. She shoots him, and then she kills Mel, and then she finds out that because Mel was pretty pregnant at that point. She was already showing
She's
pretty
very
well.
pregnant.
And then
Yeah.
I'm surprised that she couldn't tell that she was showing. I was just like, huh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, and you know, it's strange to me, right? Because you kind of touched on it. You kill Alice, the dog, and then you kill a pregnant woman, and then you kill Owen, and there's a lot to unpack as it is already right there, right?
Right.
But you also have to think that Ellie has grown up in a world where they've killed tons of people.
Right.
I mean, they just have.
whole
It's
time.
her whole life since she was a kid, she's been around this.
How many women
And-
have she's killed that maybe could have been pregnant? You don't know.
Yeah, at that
You
point,
know?
they could have. So many could have been at the early stages of pregnancy.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I struggled with too is just, you know, putting aside the pregnancy, which, you know, brings into a lot of things into question. But just a lot of these scenes with Ellie where she's facing off against these people, she looks almost like nervous and shaken. And it was a slight disconnect for me there as well, because I'm thinking to myself, she's done this tens and tens of times and defended herself and been through hell her whole life. Why is, you know, in addition to the whole revenge theme, why of all times now are you looking like you don't know what to do with a gun? It just seemed weird to me.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It
I
felt
agree.
off.
And especially her, like you nailed the nail right in the head, man. Living in that world for that long, being so experienced, doing everything on her own, like
It just felt weird. Like, you know, I get the concern, you know, that raises in your head around the animal and the pregnancy. You know, I mean, that's obvious, right? But it just, she felt weird there to me.
And at that time, go ahead, Cotton. Sorry.
Oh no, yeah, you nailed it for sure. Like you just said too, the amount of time she spent in there and the way that she specifically, I think back to it in the first game when Joel gets injured, how Ellie really takes like control confidently in that situation when she's getting him out of that building. Like she's taking care of business that whole segment of that game, like with confidence. She's young and like she's just going through it, you know, and that's an intense situation where she's trying to get him out of there. At this point, the only way I can try to think of why she's so shaken up in that moment, because she's definitely like on edge when she's like she's shaky. You can see she's like at a brink. Is that like literally when they went to the TV station, no one's there, and then she goes to the hospital and she's not there. Like she's just like, you know. And then she gets to the aquarium, Abby's not there, and she's just like at this point, I think mentally she's just like really, unstable. I don't know. She's like losing it, you know, completely losing it altogether. But there's definitely a disconnect. Again, that's a word I've used and we've used an amount of time.
I think we've probably said that 20 times during the stream so far.
It's just what happened. That's how the story. There's a lot of like moments where I want to buy it, but it's just not pulled off the right way. And like it's tropey the way they force you to kill that dog, and like for some reason, you know, that I felt like there was significance to this dog as opposed to all the dogs I killed before on the way there. I was like,
exactly.
Man. But it's and the pregnant. It's just they really try to paint Ellie in this dark light.
And conveniently drops them, and that's the thing. Not conveniently, but the map falls and they circled right on the map where they were. Right, it's like, oh, we are here, like in circle. Like, I was like, oh, jeez, come on. All right,
Cyber, I'm literally running the bathroom. I'll be back 30 seconds.
Yeah,
keep talking. Be right back.
So yeah, man, that scene just freaking it threw me off a little bit. But obviously during that scene, she actually starts throwing up, you know, because of the horrific thing that she just like killed the pregnant lady, you know. And at that point, Jesse and Tommy walks in and they take her back. So here where things starts getting a little. I'm like, okay, so here we go. Like, what's going to happen now? So they go back to the theater, right? And you know what happens at the theater. So they're talking, and they want to take Dina back because Jesse convinced everybody. And everybody agrees that they got to take Dina back. She's pregnant. She needs proper care. Perfect. Tommy's there, and Tommy looks at her and he goes, "So, no." Ellie goes, "So she gets to live." Tommy goes, "Yeah, she does. Are you okay with that?" And she goes, I guess I have to be, right?" So literally, right there, Tommy from the beginning has not wanting Ellie to go on this revenge mission, right? And hold on, somebody said that my audio is messed up.
Yeah, you're kind of botting right now. I was just started for me a little bit, but yeah, your point is.
Is it better? No, did it go
Yeah,
back?
sounds
okay,
better.
Perfect. So at that point, Tommy's character has always been Ellie against revenge. And right there, she accepts that. She understands that, yeah, it has to be. There's too many people here around me that I care about, that me just going through this is just going to end up me doing something like I literally just did. I killed a pregnant woman, I killed
She's kind of catching herself.
Child. She's catching herself.
Yeah, how far?
So right after that scene, they go out the door with Jesse. Boom, Jesse gets shot.
Boom.
Done.
Oh my gosh.
Abby's right there shooting him. Done. And then she actually has Tommy first, right? She has Tommy. Yeah, she gets to Tommy first and just holding him hostage. Jesse opens the door, shoots Jesse in the face, gone.
Yeah.
And then she goes and she shoots. At first I thought Tommy got shot in the head, right?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't show.
I was like, oh my God, he's done too. I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh my God, Abby's for real right now. What's about to happen? She's interrogating, and I thought that was a great moment too. I forgot her name. I forgot the actress name. Moment. Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Phenomenal, dude.
She was like, oh shit. Oh fuck. I was just like, oh my God, so realistic. That's exactly like somebody would act when they got. I was just like, yes. And what did they do? Let's cut out of here. Let's bring you all the way back. Let's see how Abby got here. Now you play another half of the game with Abby. And then at that point, it was just too late for me. It was way too late. Like, you start off with Abby. And then right at this point in the story, we find out, right, that Joel killed Abby's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just, it didn't work for me just because when my biggest thing with this whole Ellie cure thing was nobody gave her the choice to wake her up and explain the situation to her. That's number one. Like she was drowning. Joel was trying to save her. They knocked Joel out, right? And then she's at the surgery table. She's ready to undergo surgery. We get the conversation. I keep forgetting Is it Marlene that was from the first game?
Marlene from the first game.
From the first, yeah. So it's Marlene is having a conversation with the head surgeon, right? Abby's dad. I forgot his name too. And she asks him, and Abby is hearing this. She's asking, if it were you,
right?
Would you kill your daughter? If it were you, and he never responds. She asked him 2 times. And then Abby comes in there. She's like, if it were me, Dad, I'd want you to say, like, come, stop.
Yeah.
Stop. Okay.
It was a cheap thing.
And the one thing that gets me even more upset about this cure, I don't think I've ever seen, I haven't seen one person mention this, is in the world of The Last of Us, this cure would probably be more problematic than a salvation to that world. If one person
100%.
had the cure, if the Fireflies had the cure, you don't know what could have happened. You don't know what kind of trouble they would have had to go through to keep that cure for themselves. And it's not even a cure to bring them back, because I think after a certain stage, you can't bring them back anymore. But that world has been that world for over 20 years, now 25 years. Like even if the cure did exist for you to save the people that were bit currently, and you know now you can have a potential, you can start being, you know, serve. It would, in my opinion, it would create. How do you know? It would create more problems than it would create solutions in that world. That's just my opinion, and nobody asks
there's
that
so
question.
many problems with the concept of it. You have to really let reality go. And the crazy part about having this conversation right now is we're talking during a pandemic.
Oh yeah.
And not that it's relatable in that way, but I mean, you know, there's so many things you think about in a realistic sense of, okay, so they could theoretically create a cure at that point in time. The world's already fallen apart.
Right.
How would you even produce it? How would you distribute it? You know, that's where my brain goes because I'm an analyst, and that's how I do it. You know, and it's like this wouldn't even have done you any good to begin with. To your point,
there is no way. Yeah.
So
and then to try to sympathize with that whole scene and Abby and her father, and you trying to make a connection, it just didn't work for me anymore at that point. Like it was just, there was just too much. There was just too much here. This is how you know. Give Abby some empathy, you know. Here you go. Look, she has a dog, you know, and you care for that dog. I'm sorry if you guys hear my dog barking. Let me.
That's fine.
You know, and it was just too much.
Care for that dog. You're trying to get us to feel for the dog now, aren't you?
Fireworks are going off, and it's just going and going and going. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what you do. And you see Mandy, and you see, and like Abby's she's a good roommate. She gave Mandy I'm like, come on, guys, like what are you doing?
Oh, and that's the thing, right? Where again, like I know I said where I struggled, but I get what you're doing, right? You're trying to make us see the other side and feel the same way for her side and make it an even playing field, but you just can't accomplish that, in my opinion, with the way you did this, and so. Compounding that issue, and I don't know if we want to talk about Abby's whole journey here, but it's a long journey. It's a long part of the game, just as long as Ellie's. And you also get the entire hours you spend with Lev and that whole part of that story.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about that is, you know, they're trying to show Abby for what she's done and redemption and redeeming herself and saving someone else and all these other things. But do I care? Playing through those several hours, or you know, for me it was 10 plus hours with these characters, you know, I've already had my mind made up on. It really didn't do anything for me, and a lot of it felt like you're filler, almost like you're making me play through all these scenes to try and do something with Abby that's just not going to materialize for me.
Right.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. We just touched. It's
and did you want to say anything, Cotton?
Yeah, I was just thinking of like how you brought up how wrapping up Ellie and like that theater scene. There was a lot that happened right there in that moment, and like she kills Jesse, and then it cuts to that sequence in the hospital, and like. I disagree 100% with what you said about bringing a cure into this specific world of The Last of Us. It'd be a new superpower for them, especially for a faction that has been at war with other people. Right. Fireflies were, you know, they had a lot of people who didn't like them, from what I remember, and people that did. So it's just very problematic, and I think that they've really tried their hardest to paint Joel and his decisions and the decisions you make and have the player make in the first one as this, I don't know, selfish, dark act. And really it was like a selfless thing. Like he did it for Ellie and for like, I mean, potentially a cure. He could have got cured from it. You know what I mean? So it was not this dark decision. I don't know. I had problems with all of that, and I loved how they did bring in. You said it was Marlene from the first game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a great scene right there because she's really laying it on, and that gave some redemption to her character, which I really liked because I liked her all the way up to the end of that game. I was like, how is she supposed to be like one of the people who knows Ellie, like cared
her
for
whole
Ellie?
life?
Made this promise,
like almost like a mother.
Yeah, like a mother figure. Made this promise to her. mom, and she was just ready to just call it right there. And I like that they had her specifically laid on him because and he couldn't give an answer, and it was cheap to have Abby like be the one to be like, it's okay. Like I would have wanted to die. Like, you know, Ellie would have wanted to done the good thing too and died too. You know what I mean? But like, it doesn't change the gravity of the situation and the decision. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Going into that was just a big twist as it turned into you playing as her, and they tried to do these ploys where similar to you feeling for in the first game with the giraffes, and you're connecting with those animals, and then you have them trying to save the zebra, and like, oh, I'm finding coins, and I'm bonding with my father over these coins and collecting things. Like there's so many parallels again from that they put right in your face that it's just too little too late because you're so far in at this point, and once you start to realize that they're gonna have you play as Abby, you start to realize, okay, I better strap in for a significant amount of playtime with this character because you have all these upgrade trees that you're about to do, and it's the way they cut this game together. It is what made it so ineffective, is what I really think, because
I agree with
they
that.
They introduced
fell out of order
in the worst way. If you could play this game chronologically without so many jumps back and flashbacks within the flashbacks, it's imagine having all that time with Joel and Ellie and playing through the museum and building up and having more playtime through the beginning. Like, I don't know. It's just that really, it reminded me of a Naughty Dog game, the way they cut it together. Because, I mean, even Uncharted 4 had, like, you starting off, like, at, like, the third act, and then you go back, and then you go forward, and then you go back as the little kids. Like, it's very Naughty Dog style, but
felt very similar.
It wasn't their best. Like, it was handled poorly the way they cut it together.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't disagree. Yeah, I can't disagree at all. I think I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's so hard to articulate, right? It's like there's so many good things about the game, and they're so incredible in areas and in ways, and then there's other things where it's just like, God, why did you do this?
Yeah.
You know, it just makes you question all those excellent things, which is just tough.
I don't want to keep you guys too long, so we are gonna hit the 2-hour mark here. So I'm just gonna speed things up a little bit. So the whole second half of the game, we pretty much play as Abby, just so we can get an idea of literally how great that whole community also is, and the struggles that pretty much it's the parallel of Ellie and Joel and their community. It's the quite literally it's the exact same thing. I did like the scars. I love the way they communicated the whistling. I was just like, oh, this is nice. This is different. This is what I'm talking about. But besides that, we do meet 2 additional characters, Yara and Lev, which this was what the whole controversy was about the transgender, you know? And I was just like, it was done so well. Like, it wasn't in your face. It was nothing.
Didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me at all. Like, what was the whole thing that people were talking about this? Like, there was nothing wrong with it. And to me, Lev and Yara were like one of my 2. They were by far the 2 best supporting characters out of the whole story. Even better than Dina, in my opinion. Jesse, Owen, the whole WF crew. Lev reminded me of Ellie in the first game. Very innocent, very like cracking jokes, but also like trying to motivate Abby to get over her fears and things like that, being very wise for his age. It was amazing. And like going through the whole crane sequence, and there was a little part that I remember when you have to try to make a jump, and sometimes when maybe you miss the target, and Lev is like, if you sprint before you jump, you actually go for it. And like Abby's like, I know how to jump,
yeah.
But so for going full circle, so we meet them and we meet Lev and we find out the story, that what's going on, that there is a cult, the Scars, and that they wanted Lev to be a bride for a leader of their group, and their mother was, very, very into their ways, and no matter what you did, your mother was always gonna go against what Lev did, which was just shave his head, So
Yeah.
and the mother ends up dying. I that sequence I thought was a beautiful sequence, just because the way the world looked, the fire, it was
Oh, man.
nighttime, you're on the water, it was just
Yep.
amazing. But
Yeah,
after,
from a gameplay perspective,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
one of the best parts
it
of the
was one
game.
of the best, yeah.
Yeah.
You also get to, you get to know more about Mel. Mel doesn't really like Abby, for obvious reasons. So the way Abby meets Lev and Yara is Abby actually gets caught, right, by the Scars, and she's about to die, and Lev, they break Yara's arm. And
Brutal.
That part was, I was like,
So brutal, man.
yeah. And then Lev saves Abby, and then Abby, the rest of the game, she's just looking out for Lev. But I think before that, she meet Owen, does also some naughty things. He supposedly kills a member of the WLF, and now they're after him, which the leader of the WLF is Isaac, which is played by Jeffrey Wright. I thought it was gonna be him. I thought it was gonna be an actual model of him, but it wasn't. But I think that would have thrown a lot of people off to have that high profile actor in the game. I think it would have taken the attention off. But anything you guys want to mention to the point where we go back to the theater and you have to fight Ellie?
So I kind of commented on it. I jumped ahead on that last comment I made.
Yeah.
Is the whole sequence, not sequence, even the whole chapters that you play as Abby, and you're doing the thing with Lev and you're going against the Scars. It's not to me that was bad. In fact, like we just said a second ago, a lot of that whole kind of Scar encampment, the fire, and the all those scenes were some of the best action in the game. It's just that when I think about Last of Us and I think about being emotionally invested in what I'm doing, I wasn't emotionally invested in it. And where my hang up is, my mind wants to go to, okay, so Naughty Dog should have made these parts a lot shorter. That way it didn't feel like filler to me. If you would have made this a couple hours instead of 10 hours or whatever it took me, because I look in every corner, then I wouldn't have minded as much. But if they do that, then they can't accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, of giving you the whole redemption story for Abby and the parallels to Ellie's journey and all these other things, right? And building out that. So, and just for me personally, and I'm not saying this is true of everyone, but for me personally, they back themselves into a corner with this, because it's like, as soon as you decide in the game design that you want the player to try and empathize with Abby in the same way you've empathized with Ellie, well, now you've got to do what they did and try to show a whole bunch of that journey, right? Where you're playing as Abby.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm just not invested in Abby. And so a lot of that, and I know I can speak for Dan and Bird on this as well from Season Gaming, is they felt the same way, is that it was like a slog.
You
it
can
was
speak
like,
for me too, because I didn't care about the whole stuff.
yeah, it was just like, oh my God, like this has been going on a long time, and
Yeah.
I'm just not invested emotionally in it. So I struggled. That was, for me, that was, like I said, the gameplay wasn't bad, but just emotionally, it just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah. How about you, Cotton, before we finish this thing off with the last segment of the game?
Yeah. Just like you said, it really, the pacing started to really drag at that point.
Yeah.
It started to really drag, and it's because you can't be emotionally invested in someone they've built you up to hate for 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
Like they
Right.
literally, you're right, they box themselves in here. And that's where I go back to the way it's cut together. And I know that they couldn't have had you just play as Abby from the beginning, although it would have been more effective.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It would have been way more effective because you're going through her whole story, and like they want you to feel for Owen and Mel and all these characters, Nora, but like where these characters end, and it's hard to get very invested into all of them, let alone Abby, who's the one you hate already. So for me, it started to get me back a little bit, personally with Abby, where I started to see what they were trying to do. I thought the writing wasn't bad whenever they involved Yara and Lev. That sequence, that cinematic,
Yeah.
one of my favorites.
And they were very good characters.
They were amazing characters. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite moments there when you get rescued and then like you're there in the dark and the forest. It really brought in like that real intense, like I really was just running through the woods with that torch, and I was trying to get out of there at that point. I loved that whole gameplay sequence. It was very well done.
One thing that I didn't. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Go ahead.
One thing that I didn't like is the way Abby turned on her faction, on her people for Lev. Now, at that point, you kind of understand, right? But she's had an emotional. She's had a relationship with all these people for a long time. But I guess she was at that point. She was at the same stage that Owen was, right, when he couldn't kill that old guy. So I understood that too.
Which that was a strong line of dialogue from Owen. Like I wanted to like Owen from the beginning, because he was the one stepping in with Joel's killing. He was just like, he was there, and they tried to write that to a point where like even going back to when she's with her dad with the zebra who was there, it's Owen. And then, they find that aquarium together. It's her and Owen. Like, it feels like it's her and Owen before it's her, the WLF. That's why she disconnects, and she goes after him and starts to side with him.
Right.
And like when he gives that realization of like, the scars, the Seraphites, these are, they're just like us type of thing. And that's the constant theme. It's like, we're just all people. We're just living this Last of Us world, and they want you to feel for it. And it's tough whenever you're running through the island and people are calling out like Abby by name, and you're just slaughtering them. She's a terrible person. Like, these are her friends. But
while you're supposed to be technically playing through her redemption journey.
Well put. Yes.
And while you're supposed to be feeling her side of the story. It's very weird.
Yeah, they had this. They didn't do a well job of making her be more on Owen's side than they made you feel like she was a part of this WLF group. Like I feel like they would have done a better job to have them all incorporated as Fireflies and move there, because it really just felt like it was her and Owen, and then they found that, and then he had the disconnect. So then she just followed suit. You know what I mean? And I didn't like him. He just turns into a scumbag, creepy kind of cheater type of character. I'm like, well, there goes another male character who's just destroyed. They did good for a little bit, but those were the coolest set pieces, and I think some of that's intentional for them to. They gave Abby the best weapons. She felt more satisfying to just beat people down. They gave her the best two side characters they wrote. They gave her the big huge set piece on the island. I mean, the way Yara went out was awesome. Like she went out with a bang too. Yeah. With Isaac and saving Abby, saving Lev.
Yep.
And then they get out of there, and I think they saved a lot of the best things for Abby intentionally, so that you could be like, she sucks, but it was kind of fun. More fun playing with her.
And I think that's a microcosm of the biggest problem with the game, is that it felt like Naughty Dog was trying to make you feel a certain way throughout the game in many situations, whereas The Last of Us, the original game, did it organically.
Yes. Yeah. Well put.
And I just that's my biggest struggle with the sequel.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's
And
get
I
to.
don't know why I
oh,
didn't
go
put that in my review, but that's a good way to word it. Damn
Yeah.
it.
So let's get to the point where now you play the whole sequence and then you get back to the theater. You and you actually have to fight Ellie and you're Abby and you have
I
to.
don't want to talk about it.
And you
I don't
got.
want to talk about it. I'm getting mad.
And yeah, and this is forced on you. Like you got no choice. You have to go and you have to beat up Ellie to like the brink of death. And then Dina comes in and you have a knife. And this is, I was just like, holy shit, Abby's a badass. Abby.
I was sweating.
Because I was like,
I was literally
damn.
sweating.
She literally like grabs, like first of all, she breaks Ellie's arm, right? She does break her arm. Yeah, okay. So she breaks her arm, leaves her like to a bleeding pulp on the floor,
Yeah,
grabs
she's coughing
Dina.
up blood.
Yep. Grabs Dina. Is about to freaking cut her throat. Ellie goes, she's pregnant, and Abby goes, good. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, it's gonna go out the window. And then Lev just looks at her and she goes, Abby. And she's like, okay. And then she lets her go a second time. And I was just like, okay. And then after that, we see them, afterwards in the farm. And then I was like, okay, so this
Which was amazing, by the way.
amazing. I thought this was the end of the game. I really did. I was just
Everyone
like, okay.
did.
And Abby was just like, okay, here you go. Don't ever let me see you again. And like, there's no way, like learn your lesson, Ellie. Go home. Get out of here. Everybody's dead. So they go to the farm, and then at the farm we see a relationship. Dina already has 9 months have passed. Dina has her baby JJ, obviously for Joel and Jesse.
Around with him was so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And we find out more things, and now this is where now we actually see a little bit of chemistry and a relationship between Dina and Ellie, and I'm like, okay, I like this. And then this is where the game lost me again, because Tommy goes completely out of character. Like this is
back from the dead.
Oh, back one. I was like, I was like, you're alive?
What?
And you notice he's got like a scar across his face.
Yeah, his lost an eye or something. Bad knee.
Gone.
Yeah.
But he's the one instigating Ellie to go after Abby when all the previous times, Ains, I think you went to the bathroom here. I said at the theater, he's the one that told Ellie, she gets to live. Are you okay with that? And she's like, I know. To be.
I know.
I was like, okay. And now he comes in and he's bringing up this whole thing back. It didn't. Yeah. It was a complete 180 for that character. And obviously he does the guilt trip, and then Ellie goes for one more time after Abby.
Yeah, which again felt almost forced, right? Like they're trying to push it. Yeah. It wasn't a spoiler per se, but this is the one part where the game. So I got to the farm and I had an inkling something was going to continue to happen, but it was either Bert or Dan texted me, and all they said was, "You got a long way to go yet." And I'm like, I was like, oh shit, so I knew right then. Obviously, she was, going to go back out. So I struggled with that part of it. Going back to the whole theater scene when I had to fight Ellie as Abby. I literally tried to let Ellie kill me to see if I could advance the story that way. I tried not to fight Ellie to see if you could do it. And I just
blasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I really struggled with that part. And to your point, the way they visualized it with Ellie basically coughing up blood and Dina, having the knife to her throat. And again, I stress, I still don't feel the same way about Abby. Even though she's a badass, right? Which, again, I have another disconnect with, because they show Ellie and Abby fighting as if Abby wouldn't have just killed her in like 2 punches.
Right.
It's almost like Locke and Chief again in Halo. Uh-huh. Don't get me started on that, because, I'll go on another rant. But there's just too many disconnects. And I know we keep using that word. We've said it too much tonight. But that I struggled with that. And then to your point, Tommy's out of character with him coming to their peaceful farm months and months later when they have a baby and, they're settled and they're living a good life. And then, I struggled with all of it. And again, I bring up the fact of just because you could take the story this way, it doesn't mean it was a good decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
How about you? Anything to add to that scene, or
yeah, I'm
anything
trying
you
to
wanna
keep
say
it brief. They
Hey man, this game is. I'm trying here too, but there's so much to
there's just
say in
so
this
much.
game. It's so hard.
So much.
Yeah, I got nothing else to do right now personally, so I'm lucky. But it's dude, that sequence when you snap back into the theater, because it was Jesse was killed and then it cuts right whenever she like tosses her gun.
Yes.
Right. So she
Oh,
gives that
one
line.
thing. I'll mention one thing. Jesse's never mentioned again, ever.
And that's what's so sad, honestly, because out of Ellie's
good
side
character.
characters, he was my favorite. Out of
Yeah.
Ellie's new characters, he was definitely my favorite character. I tweeted out at one point when I was playing the part when Jesse busts through that door and gets capped in the head. My jaw dropped. I was like, "Oh my god!" And I tweeted out, "I was like, yeah, say whatever you want about this game, but they are savage. They are just savage as all can be because." I was not expecting him just to get dropped like that with no remorse, and they don't really talk about him at all anymore, which is blew my mind. So when they come back to that scene, and she's holding Ellie at gunpoint, and she Abby delivers that line where it's like, you know, we let you live, and you wasted it. Like that hit so hard. That's one of my favorite lines too because it was delivered so well, and then you have Tommy get shot and what clearly looks like the side of the head. So I was like,
I thought everyone
brushed
thought he was
over
dead.
so fast. I think everyone thought he was dead right there.
Yep.
And I was like, oh no, there's no going back for her character now. Like there's literally no going back for her. And then she goes after because she killed all of her friends. So they're in a similar situation. Like at this point I was starting to feel for Abby, but it was too late. Like I understood what they were going for, but it was obviously too late for me to want to root for her all the way. And I went through that scene, and like you, Ains, I let Abby get killed twice because I thought I wanted to see if there's different animations for it. Honestly, I was just like, at this point, I played the game all the way through in one sitting. It took me like 24 hours.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
I remember you told me that.
I just digest stories better that way, and I was lucky enough to get that Friday off, so I played.
Cool.
It just worked out that way. But yeah, that was a crazy scene. And whenever it gets to the point where you break Ellie's arm, at this point, I thought they were about to go all the way and just have her kill Ellie. Like I was getting convinced at this point. I was like, no way. Like this is about to be it. And like she just killed everybody. And then Dina comes in and she's holding the knife to her neck, and she's like, "Don't like." She's choking on blood. It's like she's pregnant, and she gives you that look. It's like good. Like,
yeah.
At that point, I was like, I don't say I wanted it to happen, but I was like, I was right there, on both of their sides. Like, Ellie, you just did this. Like they set this up for her to do this to you, for you to both lose everything. So luckily, you have the hero Lev step in, and then. There's this problem for me where it goes through both of the main characters is just mad inconsistency where she lets them go again, and like literally look what happened when you let Ellie go last time. She comes back and she kills all of your friends. And so she lets her go again. I get it, it's because Lev is right there and you're trying to like turn this new leaf. She knows that there's no sense of gratification for vengeance because she's still, even after Abby kills Joel all the way through, she's having nightmares. She's having nightmares about her dad being dead still. Like there was no like instant gratification or justification for killing Joel. I think that's why they tried to give you those nightmares of her going through the hospital until she goes and saves Lev and Yara again. Then, you know, she has the one where her dad's. And so she's turned that new leaf of like, okay, let it go, start to help people. But so that's how Lev and Yara are really strong, because they do kind of give some moral redemption to Abby, but her character's too far gone at that point to really be on her side. And you go back to the farm, and one of the most stunning scenes in the game, honestly. It's amazing. And then Tommy shows up, and I was that kind of just made me mad. I was like, you can't just do that. You can't just kill him and then he's just back. And I think maybe why Tommy is now flip-flopping and doing the whole like being Ellie, and like now in the beginning he was trying to be like, let's just stay here, let's live for what we have. And Ellie's like, no, I'm going after them. He's doing that because not only now did he lose an eye, he lost Jesse. He left without Maria's like
the necklace
permission type of thing, and he goes back now with a dead Jesse. All of this stuff happened, and now and he's lost Maria too, so he's completely changed. And he's a completely changed character at this point, and that's just, it was crazy. They did, it was that when they do the PTSD where
they do when she goes to the barn.
She goes into the barn, and now Ellie's having similar nightmares even when she's sleeping.
Which was I thought again really well done.
It's similar to Abby, how she was having those nightmares, like nothing is getting back to them, like they can't let go.
Right.
But the
next segment is crazy.
So that's very well done. And you guys already touched on everything, but then the most another jarring point, I should say, not the most, but another jarring point was you go through all that. You go through the scene of her, packing up, has the confrontation with Dina, right, around. Mm-hmm. And one of the powerful things in the game is where Dina says, we may not be here when you get back. I forget the exact wording, but you know what I mean. And she leaves, right? And then who do you play as? You start as Abby. And I'm like, why am I? You just got me so emotionally invested back into Ellie.
Right.
You start gameplay again, and I'm Abby in somewhere I don't even know where I am. Like, it just, the gameplay design just drives me crazy at times thinking about it.
You, I think you start. Do you start off in St. Barbara or no? You're going. St. Barbara.
As Abby on the that street in the abandoned neighborhood.
It's like a Whoville, California.
So we get to that scene. Just to speed this up, guys. I mean, I can. I'm not doing. I can stay talking about this game for a long time. I'm just,
and we're almost there.
We're almost there. Okay. If for everybody's is good, then we'll keep going. When we get there, and then she's talking on the radio, and she's like just giving out information where she is. What I didn't understand was she was really talking to a group of fireflies, or was it the group that attacked her right outside? That's what I didn't understand.
I hadn't thought about that actually,
because
I've been thinking about
the world would they have known that she was there? She was there already before. She was in the basement. Everything was closed. There was no way that group could have known that they were there at that exact time. That's the only.
That's true. The only precursor they give, and I don't know if you noticed this, but as you're walking down the street, on one of the RVs is the symbol of that group.
What are they called? The Rattlers?
The Rattlers. Yeah. Because I looked at it and I saw the symbol and I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell that is. But yeah, so that's actually on the RV in the middle of the street that you're walking down.
So because I said, so maybe this was just people pretending to be the fireflies around the neighborhood. And then they, that's how, because she gives the number of the house that she's in. She's like, I'm here at, I forgot the name.
That's true.
Number. Yeah. And she's like, I'm here at blah, blah, blah street. And as soon as you go outside, boom, they're calling him Fat Geralt. Takes care of the both of them. I thought so we get there and then they get captured and then we transition to Ellie, right back to Ellie as soon as they get captured. And let me tell you something, it's funny that there's never no encounter when they're in their journey, right? Throughout the whole, so they were in Jackson, is it Wisconsin, I believe, all the way down to California, Santa Barbara. Never had any encounters, but as soon as you get to where you need to, this last part of the game, I thought it was also very fun, just because you get the better weapons at the end too. Like this faction had by far to me one of the best weapons in the game. Like you had automatic rifles, you had this, you had like it was wild, but it showed a part of Ellie, just how smart she is, but how smart she wasn't during the Seattle sequence, because when she gets captured and she got punctured on the side because she got captured on the trap, she lures in the guy, one of the guys,
awesome.
and she's immune, so the guy bits her and the guy, and she takes one of the character's guns and shoots the other guy, and I thought that was really well done by Ellie, and that's how she discovered where Abby is. But once she gets to Abby, I didn't like that, just because I felt the game at that point was cheating. At that point, no way Ellie was gonna win a fight hands down with Abby.
Oh, that's what I said earlier. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. So, and how many factions in this world just want to torture people for the sakes of torturing people? Right? Like, what's going on here? And then we see, Ellie gets through the whole complex, and she goes down to the jail where there's some, prisoners, and one of the prisoners even tells she's able to free them. She's like, oh shit, she's bitch. She's like, I'm just looking for Abby. Don't point that gun at me or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then he's like, she's down at the beach, but we don't even know if she's alive.
Yep.
And you're like, oh shit. And when you go down there, you see exactly what's going on. And then you see Abby hanging on a pole, and all these poles are filled, right? Or most of them. She's there, Lev is there, and you cut down Abby. And nothing happens for a while. You cut down Abby at this point doesn't even look like herself. She's been there for God knows how long.
Which was well done, given the
Very well
circumstance.
done. Yeah. So she's been there for, to whenever. She's skinny, she's not muscular like she was before. She looks beat up in all sorts of ways. I can even imagine. Starved, dehydrated.
Hair's all shaved, cut.
Everything.
She's burnt beyond belief on her shoulders, man.
And she cuts down Lev, and she just starts taking off, and then you have to follow her to the beach as Ellie. Now at that point, I'm thinking they're gonna have some exchange dialogue, and then maybe go their separate ways.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't like, so she goes there, and then Ellie, as soon as she's just there in the boat, she just gets a quick glimpse of PTSD, and she sees Joel.
Yes.
And she's like, oh shit, nah, I can't do this. And then that's when we go back to music, right? And then that music starts to pump up. And then you're like, oh, here we go.
One of the best parts.
Yeah.
But at that point, I found it cheap. I was like, how are you gonna fight Abby or try to kill her at this stage? She's gonna be literally no fight. That's my first thought. 2, you saved her just for now for us to go and try to kill her again, which that fight to me was the most brutal fight out of the whole thing. It's like you're cutting Abby consistently, and her reactions. I was just like, what's going on here? And Ellie forces Abby's hand to fight her. So they do fight, and eventually, Ellie gets her fingers bitten off, and she's at the point where she's drowning. She has Abby right there. She's gonna kill her, and then she sees Joel again playing the guitar or something like that, and she lets her go.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm like, okay, what was the point of all this? Like, I understand the cycle of revenge. Somebody has to break the cycle. But Ellie literally, if her point, if her first intention was to really kill Abby, she could have left her in the pool. She didn't have to cut her down. She didn't have to cut her down, bring her to the beach so they could fight there. And I don't know if she did this or not, but she left every other single person that was on that pole up there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Maybe after the scene, she came back and she cut everybody down. But
I think they were trying to show that they were dead and actually alive, but it is kind of questionable. That's for sure.
Definitely questionable.
She has that moment where she's done, and she has that Owen moment that she's like, she can't do this anymore, which I understand. They've been through so much, but wouldn't her seeing an image of Joel actually have the opposite effect of
my
her giving
thoughts
up?
Exactly.
And if I ever hear anybody talk bad about Batman vs Superman, the Martha scene, and you like this scene, it's literally the exact same thing.
I like Batman vs Superman. I'm one of the defenders.
I don't say I like the movie overall.
That's my mom's name.
But that scene where people are like, "Oh, he said his mom's name." It's like almost kind of like here. You see two people who, you know, a parent figure in front of you, and you realize, hey, maybe that's not what they wanted for me. But yeah, that ending to me was just, I don't want to say unsatisfying, but it was disappointing. I was disappointed by the end because the cycle of revenge in that world would never end. Like, it would end for Ellie, but how many other people did Ellie and Abby kill that can start that cycle all over again? Like, right. It just, in that world, I thought it could have been told a little bit different. What do you guys think about the end? Cotton, yeah, I'll start with you.
I was gonna say there's a lot to go here, so go ahead, Cotton.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, you brought up a great point. Just to go back a little bit, that I thought about specifically is when they're leaving that house in Santa Barbara and they get jumped, and you're like, okay, so was this all? This is a plan. Like, this is how they get people. Is this how this faction gets people? Is the Fireflies? This whole thing. Like, maybe not feel bad about Owen, like he would have got there and got killed anyways, type of thing. Like,
right.
Like, that was something I thought about. But you're right, Ellie really shines at this part of the game. For me personally, I thought the game should have ended at the farm. I feel like a lot of people thought that way because it's just a relapse and it feels cheap. I feel like it was this entire segment of the game was just obviously just to get to this fight at the end, but also just to get Abby that frail and weak to have a somewhat fair fight that was still not quite fair. I felt it was cheap, but it was still. I'm
surprised she lasted that long, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I thought honestly, it was going to be just like very uneven fight.
I was at this point I was up for so many hours and it was starting to drag so hard that I was like, oh my god, I'm in California. Like, I thought this game ended like 3 times. Like, I was literally,
you were having your own PTSD and flashbacks.
I was literally ready. I was so ready to be like, it's done, and it fades to black, and then you're Abby and you're in California. I'm like, no way. This is a whole nother act? Is this Act 5? Like, what's about to happen? But no, it's a really cool segment of the game. Like you said, that silenced submachine gun.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
It was cool how they had the chained up infected around and you could let them loose. There was some extra gameplay elements that were implemented here that I really liked. But it felt really cheap to get Abby that week because, I mean, you know that she would have won. Abby wasn't armed in the first fight and she wasn't armed in the second fight. So she would have really murked Ellie in that first fight if Ellie wasn't running around with shotguns. And then in this fight, she's literally like brittle and frail, and Ellie has a knife, and it just gets down to this point of inconsistent again, where it's like that's such a major thing you said, Cyberware. She's gonna let her go. Like, they both just seen enough and been through enough that like they're both about to take off, and then she sees Joel and it incites all of this rage. Like, she has to do this. She literally left her good life behind. Like, she had the good life with Dina and the baby, and Abby's out here getting tortured, about to die. She left all that behind to kill Abby and deal with her, you know, her PTSD and her demons or whatever you want to call it. And so Joel incites that again, which makes sense at first. And then it comes down to her getting her fingers bitten off, where you would think that would make her even more pissed off. But then after that happens, she sees Joel again. And, like, I don't know what they're going for here, because I thought that this is where she was, like, just going to crush her windpipe underwater, like, type of thing. I thought she was going to, like, freak out in rage at that point. But she lets go. And I get that it's, like, it's the cycle, you know, and maybe she realized that it's not ever going to be enough. Nothing can bring him back. She's not just mad at Abby for taking Joel away, but she's mad at herself for the way that she left things off with Joel, and it just kind of hits that ceiling of her realizing that, you know, this isn't going to fix it. So it just, in the end, it was very unsatisfying for me, that it just ends that way. But I don't know. Part of me wishes, because there's, as much as I feel like we're all in the same boat of like, don't really like Abby and wanted her to be finished for the most part, there's definitely people out there who liked Abby a lot.
Yes,
and,
there are.
Oh yeah.
Identified with her more, and some people I've even heard and seen that they wanted for her to pretty much finish Ellie right there. So I thought it would have been.
I will fight those people at this moment.
I know. I've read some crazy things. I've read some crazy reviews, and I thought it would have been a more gratifying choice if it was something along the side, like for gameplay wise and for story, because they tried to build up both these characters to be similar, and some people are going to feel one way and some are going to feel another, but the fact that they both walk away is it feels meaningless in the end. And I wish they would have went a route that was like
almost like a cop out, right?
It's definitely a cop out. I wish they would have done, because they take a lot of risk with this game. Like the way they do this whole game is a lot of risk, but then it feels like they don't take any in the end.
Yeah.
And they could have went this like Gears 5 type of route where it's like Kate, spoilers, is in that decision where she has to make that decision
that
to
was rough,
end
man.
one or end the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what if they gave you the decision where they're squared up and it's like play as Allie or play as Abby? Abby. And I said Allie and Abby.
Even the names are similar, man.
Yeah, but it would have been, I don't know, am I the only one who thinks that's interesting, where it's like they could have done that, and they could have had you play as Ellie if you wanted and killed Abby, or done the other way around.
I agree, yeah. I don't think enough games do that. I think the first time we talked, I mentioned that. Not to go back to
really cool.
To Halo 5 too, is the marketing was genius, but you spend too much time introducing a character that they feel forced upon the player, right?
Right.
And they could have given Abby a game before this, kind of like a what was the DLC? Left Behind, yeah. Given
great,
them,
by the way.
Yeah. So they could have done something like that, so we understood the character and understood the motivation. Instead, they forced the character on you, and most players, and I it's not that I don't like Abby, it's just I didn't care. Like, she was a good character at the end. Like I said, I love playing as her. Like I love playing with Abby more than I did with Ellie, but at that point it was done, because those are not the characters that you waited 7 years to play with.
Yeah, you guys are both preaching to the choir. I don't even really need to continue down this front. We feel very similar.
Okay.
So let me ask this. This is the question I've asked other people who have finished the game. And Matt, I know you said, who's watching here, hasn't finished the game. And if you haven't, well, we've already kind of ruined that anyway.
Yeah.
But, let me ask this. When you were Ellie and you're holding Abby under the water, did you want her to finish her?
Oof.
That's a hard question.
That's a tough question. At that point, I don't think I did, but for Ellie's sake, I think at that point I was just like, you're gonna keep going. You already lost so much. You're just gonna keep doing this to yourself over and over and over again. Yep. And if she only killed, and then the game wouldn't make any sense, because if she only killed Abby at that point, Lev would have been alive, and guess what?
Right.
That would have started the whole thing again.
Exactly.
So I think that was the right decision. You let her go.
Okay. So you agree, Cotton?
I've played this over in my head. Actually, I was thinking about this today at work, and the only way I really would have liked her to finish Abby there was to be completely, it's going to sound really savage, but she's been savage through the whole game. So I was picturing a scenario where, because that doesn't make sense for me, for her to see Joel and feel like to let her go.
Yeah.
I would have rather of Lev made a move or made a movement as of some kind where she sees him and then she decides to let go, right? And she doesn't kill her right there. And then she has that flashback again as they're about to pull off on the boat. This is going to be pretty dark, but as they're about to leave, I would have liked her to have another flashback and then just take out like Joel's revolver and end them both right there.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that would have been
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
funny
what
because
I-
Mariano in the chat says yes, he did want that. Now I've asked that question of a few people now, and someone asked it of me. And the reason I ask you guys is because I think we're all pretty similar in the way we viewed some of these story elements. For me, I was in the boat of no. I agreed with the game, and you've almost what you said, Cyber. You've come this far. There's been nothing but loss and heartache and death and tragedy, and it's time to let go. And I think what Naughty Dog's going for, right, is the final end point of the redemption journey to, God, for lack of a better word, this is not me, but like salvation, right? You're finding your humanity again after all the PTSD, all the horrible things you've done, all this entire journey. You've rediscovered your humanity by letting Abby go and Lev go.
Yeah.
And I get what they're going for. I've said this so many times tonight. Get it.
Yeah.
I think where I really struggle with the whole journey and that end cap of the journey is that I didn't feel this way with the first game. The second game, I feel like Naughty Dog felt like almost pretentious in a way of, hey, we're going to challenge the player so much and make them think about this so much that we are geniuses in this regard. And where I really struggle after that end cap, looking back on the game, is thinking, it's not that you're geniuses, it's that there's a reason other developers haven't done this, because it doesn't sit well in the end. And I just that's the end question. The reason I asked that at the end is because I know Mariana here in the chat feels differently, but I think the people I've spoken to, I want to say the majority have said no. They're glad that Ellie didn't kill her.
Yeah, because nobody would want that for Ellie, for her to keep going through that. Not even Joel, like Joel wouldn't want her.
That was the point, right?
Yeah.
It's the humanity aspect. And Mariano just said, he's like, it feels like we made all these sacrifices for nothing, but that may just be me playing angry.
Cotton made that comment to me 2 weeks ago. Cotton, you said that too.
Yeah.
I think you said that game starts with you. What was I don't want to put words in your mouth. What did you say? It was something about you feel like you did nothing throughout the whole game. The game was literally nothing.
I mean, nothing happens.
Nothing
really.
happens,
Joel
yeah,
dies. Is what happens. I mean, they lose everything, but from the story you start with, because the only characters you know going into that really is essentially Maria, Tommy, Joel, and Ellie.
Yeah.
And all of them are alive but Joel. And that's where it ends.
Yeah, it's true. The whole game and story is the journey itself, not the they tried to make it the meaning behind the story, but in my opinion, it lands flat.
And I think it was this story of revenge cycle. It has been done so many times before in books and movies. That's kind of my point. They're
Naughty Dog, and I'm not trying to make fun of Naughty Dog. They're one of the best developers on the planet. I mean, they just are.
One of my favorite games this gen still.
I love Uncharted. I love their work, but they seem to think they've created something completely new and ingenious here, and they just haven't.
Right.
And it weighs on me because of the love I have for the first one. Yeah, and the characters, and it's like I go all the way back to the simple phrase I said in my review: just because you could do this doesn't mean you should.
Right. So she goes to, after all of that, we see her going back, and then we actually see what transpires between her and Joel the day before, which was at the party. Joel stands up. I think we actually had seen that already. No, we see that afterwards, I believe. I'm getting
What's that?
my cutscene.
Sweet.
The last cutscene.
The confrontation at the dance
We
party.
see the confrontation, but the last. I think we see that already, or we see that right
That's
at the end.
before that. Yeah, the
That's
very
before
last thing is you go back to the farm
and you and then you. But when she's playing the guitar, she has a little bit of a flashback where she walks up and you see Joel playing the guitar, and they have that little, discussion, and he's like, in this, and you gotta let me be my own person. I don't, you're such an ass, this and that, and I can't believe. And then Joel, again, like a badass, he goes, if the good, and I think it's not verbatim, but he goes, if the good Lord ever gave me a chance to go back, I do it all over again, because you're that important to me. You're my, and that's like, what?
That right there, right? That power of Joel and that statement is almost more than anything I felt for any of the new shit they
exactly. And that kills me to say that about this story, man, because the first one was it breaks my heart. It really does, because the first one was so good. But yeah, and then we see that Ellie gives Joel like, okay, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I want to try. And the way he's choked up and he's like, okay, I was just like, damn, that's Joel and Ellie right there. That's what this game should have been about. And one way or another, it wasn't. Anybody want to add anything towards the end? If I got 2 questions for you before we close off, because that's pretty much the end of the game. It's been a great discussion. I'll ask you guys, if you had a quick elevator pitch for this game, instead of being this same theme, Joel had to die and things, but if you had to change something, and what would you have changed? Ains, I'll go with you first.
Oh God. Yeah, it's tough. I think even though it would have been a little more obvious and more direct, I would have done the game how it was marketed, in being a true Ellie revenge journey. It would have been, like I said, it's not that it hasn't been done. It would have been more obvious. It wouldn't have maybe had people question it as much or talk about it as much. But I think I would have felt, if it had been done well as the first game, and as well as we know Naughty Dog can do things, I think it would have been a more satisfying journey for me. I think what they ended up doing had a huge impact. Obviously, a lot of discussion on it. We can tell by our near 3-hour discussion here tonight for the 3 of us.
It's that kind of game.
Yeah, and it brings all that forward, but it still doesn't. It's not a satisfying discussion in the sense of, I don't feel like this sequel, and I said this in my review, you look at this game a couple years from now, I don't think it's going to have the lasting impact that the first one did, and I don't think people are going to identify as broadly with Abby as they do with Joel and Ellie. I just don't feel that way. So if I would have done it, I would have done it more traditional, I guess you could say, in a revenge story, though I think you could have really kind of fleshed that out a lot and still made it very meaningful.
Yeah. What about you, Khan?
I was thinking about this a lot, and I think just to try to, as far as giving a pitch that stays kind of coherent with their vision and their characters, I really would have just switched it up a bit, and I would have had Dina being the one that was killed, maybe when they were on patrol. And then I would have had Joel and Ellie go out together as a duo to do this revenge thing, while he's convincing her that this isn't the right path, and they're still griping, and then that he leaves. I would just like to see her and Abby somehow meet without Joel being in the way, and then build up Abby and Ellie together.
Yep.
And then in the end have there be this revelation for Abby that Joel is who he is and Ellie knows him. And then that's where, because then you build a bond between Abby and Ellie, or like you have to build the character up without her destroying her first. So they have to find a way to have done that. And then maybe you focus on a third game where it's more of they're going after Joel, where she's now, Ellie's world shattered. Her new friend is now going after Joel. I would have done something along that way I think it was marketed to where Dina was definitely the one who was going to go in the beginning, and Joel shows up to. There's like a specific trailer I remember where Joel comes up behind Ellie and he's like, "You think I was going to let you do this by yourself?"
Yeah.
And like they really pushed Dina and Ellie in those trailers too. So I was really thinking it was going to be Dina who went. So
well, and they did that scene in the game, but it was Jesse behind her, right?
Yeah,
right.
And
yeah,
I'm not a fan of don't misalign your marketing.
Don't bait and switch.
And
like,
they did that. They deliberately did that. They've confirmed.
They did. Yeah.
I would have liked to see something like that.
Yeah,
but
I kind of agree with both of you. I think this game, and even if the game was the way it was, but they've reordered it differently. You know, I think it would have still 100%. Worked. I personally would have liked to see, kind of like you, if let's say if Abby gets caught and Joel saves her life, and now she has to go to Jackson and be part of that community because maybe her friends think she's dead or something along those lines, and she grows there, you know, and she gets to learn everything. She gets to learn about Joel and Ellie, and now she's running, you know, she's going out in the world with Ellie. Maybe that would have been the duo. And then the third half of the game is maybe she's taking them all the way to Seattle to meet her, you know, somewhere along those lines, where by the end of the game, you still would kill Joel, and Abby you would have to, you know, to confront, you would have to that confrontation with yourself. I have to kill Joel now because Abby, I empathize with Abby and I see where she's coming from and what's going on here. Or even the way, if this was to obviously to be a happy ending, my happy ending would be this whole thing going, Abby gets conflicted. She knows she wants to kill Joel, but she doesn't kill him. But something else happened and Joel gets bit, you know, and it's something like that. And Abby is the one that kills Joel just for out of, you know, mercy kind of deal at the end. But it's tough, man. Obviously this is Naughty Dog's story, not our story to tell, but all right, so last thing, Ains, I know you revealed it, but if you wanted to give this game a score, what would you give it? Would it be the same score you gave on the site, or was that more of a professional review type of
thing? So I tried to separate myself. You know, when you're reviewing, it has to be critical, right? So I struggled though a lot on the score. And funny enough, when I first started doing reviews on Season Gaming, we didn't have scores. The only reason we actually moved to having scores is to be counted in aggregate sites, because like sites like OpenCritic and Metacritic require a score. So long story short, I struggled a lot with it. I gave the game a 9 at the end, and I put a comment in there that, like the first game, but even more so, most of that 9 is held up by the story, cinematics, and kind of the delivery of the writing, right? Because Naughty Dog is, in some areas, is very far above most developers. But I definitely called out the problems with the AI I had, the problems with the pacing, and some of my complaints with the game. So I struggled a lot. I ended on a 9. I could see anywhere between, like, if you're talking a 1 to 10 scale, anywhere between 1 to 10, anywhere between like an 8 and a 9. I kind of get it. I don't get the 10s. I just don't. I don't think the game is deserving of a 10. But I also see people saying it's like a 5, and I'm not there either. There's just too many very impressive things about the game to be anywhere in the middle range to say this is an average game. I mean, forget the story, right? Going back to the animations and the graphics and the cinematics and the voice acting and the soundtrack. You know, there's just there's too many aspects of the game that are stellar to think it's anything less than a high score. So, and a lot of things we've talked about tonight are opinions, right? You know, they're personal thoughts about things. So when you're looking at the game critically, it's a little different.
Yeah,
it's very, very tough though.
Oh yeah, Kyle, do you have a score at all for the game?
Yeah, so right when I beat the game, like I said a few times now, I played it all the way through. I didn't sleep, and I gave a knee-jerk reaction sort of review. And initially, I was at an 8. I was at an 8 out of 10. But this game I've really processed a lot more, and just it's well above average. Just like you said, with the animations, the sound design, one of the best sound designs I've ever heard in any game. The music, the graphics, the writing. A lot of people are saying is lazy. There are a lot of tropes and there's a lot of pandering in it, but it's done very tastefully. Honestly, like I've seen way worse. And if I just like to think that if this game was cut differently and had a different timeline, this game is very close to being able to be like a 9 or a 10. With it just overall for technically, story, and everything. I just think that the way they really edited this game together, they didn't do themselves justice, because it seems like they had something special that they just kind of really messed up. And it brings me to the story, just brings me down to like, I'm at like, it's hard for me to be at an 8 because the story brings me down so low, but the game is so well above average that I'm really sitting at like a 7 out of 10.
Okay. Well, I'm on the same boat as you guys. It's this being me holding The Last of Us in such high regards, and this being such a story-driven game just breaks my heart. And because it didn't land with me here, that's what's driving my score so down. You know, graphically, the cinematics, animation, the actors, you know, the way they portrayed each character, everything is phenomenal. The gameplay, to me, like I said, it was good. It wasn't bad, but I was struggling just to get through this story, man. It was just so tough, just because to me that was not what they could have done better. They could have given Joel
everything we've talked about.
pretty much everything we talked about, you know. And I was you know, if you're just looking at like how I broke down graphics, you know, and gameplay, it was landing to me at like a 6.5. So you could go either way. It could be at like a 6 or a 7, depending which way. But the story, if this story had nailed it for me, like I said, it would have been, you know, way up there, like an 8 or a 9. But the story just drove it down to me to like either a 6.5. You could go either way, a 6 or a 7. If it was just based on story, I'd give it a 6 out of 10, just because it's story that's been done before. I don't think it's told well. There's nothing in the story that connected with me like the first game did. The first game, to me, I think is a 10 out of 10, especially the remastered on the PS4. It's just amazing. I just feel like this game didn't connect with me, and that's unfortunate, man, especially for a studio of that caliber like Naughty Dog. And being the sequel, I wasn't on the boat that The Last of Us should have had never had a sequel, and this is why sometimes this happens. You know,
it's true.
But
that's the square I stood in.
Yeah, guys,
it's been a single.
Yeah, it's been a great night. It's been a great 3 hours. Thank you so much for being here.
That's great.
I think we could have gone another hour or two if we actually kept nitpicking on what we wanted to talk about. But I really appreciate you gentlemen coming by, and you know, it's good to talk about this game, get it out of your chest, and let it, you know, be out there. So, you know, maybe somebody listens to it. They're on, you know, they want to have some similar thoughts or anything like that. They can listen to this, and I love talking about the games with people and maybe have a different opinion, different perspectives, because if you're just trying to see your own opinion being justified somewhere, then sometimes it's no good, you know. But I love what each one of you had to say. It was amazing. But so let's get through this outro real quick. Cotton, anywhere, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Cotton McCast on Twitter, and as well as on PlayStation Network, same name, and on Xbox Live. Add me if you want to play anything. I've been playing Warzone a lot recently, and my gamer tag is Terry Fold, one word. Thanks, Cyber. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate
nice
you
to
being
meet you,
here,
Ames.
man.
This was an awesome conversation. Great to hear the opinion. So very successful first show, I'd say, dude. Good job.
Hey,
You looked
I
great the whole time.
appreciate it, man. It was nerve wracking right before I went live, so it's
Killed
good.
it, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Ains, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, so Cyber, thanks, man. I know we've talked quite a lot before. You're always been following Season Gaming and our big cast and everything, so appreciate that. It was a pleasure being on. Cobb, nice meeting you, man. Glad I
Likewise.
followed you back tonight. Real good conversation, and it's been a lot of fun, guys. So yeah, for me, I'm Porsche Power everywhere, everywhere you can think, and Season Gaming. So seasongaming.com. You can find everything there. So articles, podcasts, channel, all that stuff. So just really appreciate it. And always a good conversation. I just love chatting games.
Yeah, me too, man. I appreciate you guys coming by. Honestly, it was a great first show. It was a little bit, I had to get the butterflies out in the beginning, but you get comfortable as you go along. I also want to thank the chat, everybody that was on the chat. Mariano Pompa, thank you so much, sir. Matt Barnes was in here. I know Dreadpool was in here at one point. Tempest dropped by.
All good guys.
Everybody that dropped by, thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you guys coming by. And you can see me all my handles on the screen: Twitch, YouTube, Twitter. That's where I'm mostly more active. Also on Xbox, hit me up if you guys want to go ahead and play some games. I'm always active there as well. And that's the show, guys. As always, thank you so much. Stay safe out there. Stay healthy, and as always, keep on gaming.